particular of highlighting to the world both the risks and the benefits of AI and advocating for safe AI, Max Tegmark. So let me begin with His Excellency, the Minister for Digital Affairs of France. France has also been a steadfast supporter and leader on digital technologies in New York, and we're very honored to have you with us, sir. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. To begin with, I would like to express how pleased I am to speak before you today within this United Nations framework, which embodies multilateralism that France will continue to support. I would first like to congratulate the UN Secretary General for initiating this whole process in 2018 and convening the high-level panel on digital cooperation. This initiative has clearly given a new boost to the global debate on digital governance, which is an increasingly crucial topic, particularly in the context of the pandemic. This crisis has indeed highlighted how much digital is a valuable tool for our societies and economies, which help us to fight the pandemic, maintain social links despite physical distancing, and to continue to work remotely, for some of us obviously, and will be a key component in the post-crisis period. That's why France is grateful for being invited to this conversation and is determined to continue to shape with you a digital world and an internet which is free, open and safe, unique and unfragmented. And I dare to insist on this last part. An internet in which we can put our trust, and notably the trust in the legality and the quality of the content. I would like also to thank all the stakeholders involved in this work and reaffirm how important it is to maintain a constant dialogue between governments, civil society, private sectors and experts on this matter. Thanks to the great work accomplished with our co-champions of Roundtable 3C on AI, the team of USG Fabrizio Hochschild, Finland, UN Global Pulse, the Future of Life Institute and UNESCO, and this active multi-stakeholder discussion, the AI part, so to say, of the roadmap has turned out to be both ambitious and balanced. AI, as you all know, has tremendous potential and is undoubtedly here to stay. There is no discussion on the need to discuss this technology in the context of this roadmap, which is natural, because along with benefits, and no one should be left behind for what regards those benefits, there are potential risks. Abuse of personal data, bias amplification, for instance. Those risks we have to mitigate. Recent advances in AI in many areas and the growing influence of algorithm on our lives reinforce its place in the public debate. For example, when we consulted the supporters of the Paris Call for Trust and Security in Cyberspace earlier this year, artificial intelligence was a technology most mentioned by participants in terms of both potential destabilizing impact and promising applications. The 5 principles we've been agreeing on: an AI that is trustworthy, human right-based, safe and sustainable, and promotes peace, matches perfectly with the objectives and values France is promoting regarding this technology. The construction of an AI for humanity. First, it highlights that we don't have to be afraid to say that we have values, and that these values, human right-based, are democratic and universal, and with that we have to defend them. Secondly, it sends a signal that our values will shape technology and technical choice, and not the opposite. Those messages are really important and must structure our actions, because without these values, without ethics, we will never reach a trustworthy AI. That's why, as you may know, we have created with Canada and 13 other founding members, the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence, the GPI. I have to say a word about this, as the official launch of our initiative is also taking place today, which is a good coincidence. To mention the founding members: Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Mexico, New Zealand, the Republic of Korea, Singapore, Slovenia, the United Kingdom, the United States of America and the European Union, and lately India, just today, we have come all together to the same conclusion that we have to defend democratic values to better contribute to the global dialogue on AI and promote a human-centric vision of AI that is respectful of human rights. And the OECD recommendation on AI forms the basis of these democratic values. UNESCO was also involved in this process and will continue to participate. This initiative will permit an upstream dialogue between the best scientists and experts and public decision makers, which is a key condition for designing effective response and recommendations necessary to cope with current and future challenges faced by our societies. We have identified 4 priority topics: responsible AI, and this working group will be chaired by Joshua Benjo, that you may know, data governance, future of work, innovation, and commercialization. Moreover, the current crisis has obviously led us to include a focus on how to answer to the current pandemic, which is an impulsion from G7 this year. The GPI will be supported by 2 centers of expertise in Paris, piloted by INRIA, our National Institute for Research and Digital Science and Technology, and Montreal, and a secretariat hosted at the OECD to maximize synergies with this organization. This launch is a tremendous satisfaction for us after 2 years of very hard work with our Canadian partners since 2018. Let's just come back to the 5 principles agreed on within the UN Roundtable on AI. I have already talked about trustworthiness and human rights. I want to also remind the importance of safety, because if we are not confident in AI system, there won't be trust in innovation. Sustainability is also crucial, and we have to put our efforts toward the frugal AI to build applications that use less data, that consumes less power. Finally, AI offers significant opportunities to promote peace and strengthen international security. It also raises challenges which multilateralism can help us address. This is why France fully supports the work undertaken within the United Nations Convention on certain conventional weapons, and will continue to contribute constructively to the group of governmental experts on emerging technologies in the area of less autonomous weapon systems. To conclude, on the idea to create a multi-stakeholder advisory body on global artificial intelligence cooperation to the UN Secretary General, I think it is promising, as long as it sticks to a role of cooperation and debates and does not try to be yet another normative body. If it plays its role of UN cooperation and experience-sharing body between already existing initiatives, it can have a real added value and become a pivotal element of a future global AI governance system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you. Congratulations on the launch of your initiative today. I must say, I recall President Macron's speech to the IGF in 2018, where he very eloquently argued for value-based approaches to the internet and the need for civil society, governments, and the private sector to come much better together. And it was really inspired by that speech that the roadmap also developed. The partnership you mentioned among 13 countries sounds tremendously valuable. Of course, I think the added value of the UN is the universal approach with all 193 member states. And we're very lucky that pioneers in that area are colleagues from UNESCO, who have a long and distinguished history in bringing ethics and value to scientific development. And of course, in biotechnology, the work of UNESCO on ethics has been absolutely critical in keeping the science safe. And my much admired colleague, Madame Azoulay, has been spearheading the work of UNESCO in developing adequate ethical frameworks for AI. And we're very honored, Madame Azoulay, to have you here with us today. And let me hand the floor to you.
beaucoup, cher Fabrizio. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I'm also delighted to be with you today for this discussion on the digital cooperation roadmap that was launched by the UN Secretary General. It provides us with now a clear path forward, and UNESCO, as you said, Fabrizio, is determined to contribute to these essential issues to our mandate, education, in communication, but also in science and in ethics of science. The last few weeks have shown that for issues concerning the future of humanity, cooperation is not only essential, it is also the most effective option. We have also seen the central role of digital technology. And artificial intelligence is one of these issues that concern our future. It is not only technological issue, but an anthropological disruption. And its influence, which is already strong, will only grow in the years to come. We were given a demonstration of this during the crisis when the large-scale processing of data using AI was discussed as one way of fighting the pandemic. But so that technologies in general and AI in particular help the 2030 agenda, we need to take on board the ethical issue in a universal manner, in a way to guarantee that they're used for the common good. And we need to build trust. And I would like to thank very much the speakers who mentioned this issue very particularly, France and Finland. And indeed, there are some principles who do not have the right to be failed, even for the promise of better health. We must not lose in humanism what we gain in convenience or productivity. The vigilance must be even greater as the new world takes shape, a world which will be more digital than the past, to quote the words of the Secretary General. As you recalled kindly, Fabrizio, this is the idea behind UNESCO's work on the ethics of science. In the past, for instance, the adoption of a universal declaration on the human genome and human rights 20 years ago. And like genome research, artificial intelligence is a technological innovation that breaks new ground and creates countless opportunities. But it also gives rise to questions, even concerns, and it is therefore vital to establish ethical rules governing the use of AI. For instance, when AI incorporates gender biases, it can become a tool that quietly amplifies and reinforces societal inequality. This was the message conveyed last year by one of our publications, a UNESCO report that we have called "I'd Blush If I Could." Another example is that existing AI principles for data analysis, we've seen that they tend to minimize or overlook environmental or sustainability concerns. This was the conclusion reached by UNESCO after reviewing a number of documents and studies on existing principles on ethics of AI. To quote one of these studies, sustainability, dignity, and solidarity are significantly underrepresented compared to other ethical dimensions, which suggests that these issues might be currently flying under the radar of the mainstream AI ethics debate. Other issues like transparency, for instance, have been mentioned by speakers. And this is why, building on our humanistic and interdisciplinary mandate, and with the support of our member states, UNESCO has begun work on what would be a world first, universal normative instrument in the form of a recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence. This process has started and it's been adopted in its principle by our member states last November. Since then, 24 international experts have been charged with drafting an initial text, and I'm pleased to announce that the group held its first meeting online due to the COVID situation in April, and their work was followed with considerable interest. During this meeting, the experts reviewed the ethical values that should be incorporated to any AI program to ensure that no one is left behind, and these include respect for human rights, environmental principles, the fight against biases affecting women and persons living with disabilities, and the need of countries in the global south. And the experts have been able to produce a first draft of what will become the normative instrument. But this debate, which we need, needs to take place not only between experts, it's also a citizen and ethical debate in the most noble sense. And this is why it must be inclusive and incorporate as much as possible of our collective intelligence, and why global cooperation, the topic of today's dialogue, is crucial. With its universal vocation and its ability to act as an interface between civil society on the one hand and decision maker on the other hand, our organization is a good forum for this global discussion. From this month to August, UNESCO is organizing extensive online consultations on the ethical dimension of AI at national, regional, and international levels. The goal is to ensure that all voices are heard, including the voices of civil society, of scientists, of the public, with a special focus on women, minority groups, and disadvantaged countries. We're also continuing to create ties with partners in all fields, and including, of course, the private sector. With their assistance, we are now launching a platform of educational resources to teach the workings of AI to students between 5 and 18. And building on all these efforts, this consultation process, and at the end of the consultation period, the expert group will draft a second version of their recommendation, a version which will be put forward for adoption and discussion before by our 193 member states for an outcome that we would like to have at our next general conference in November 2021. And in doing so, we believe that within the UN family, we are continuing to lay the foundation of a multilateralism based on values, on shared values, built on ethics and humanism, to be at the level of the imperative of responsibility that we have. So I'd like to thank all of you for the support, the member states that are around the table today and that are great partners, but of course the UN family in general, which is a part of this process. So regards here from UNESCO and from Paris, and over to you, Fabrice. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for those words, and we continue to be inspired by the work of UNESCO and look forward to working closely and being guided by you on our work ahead on AI. And I think the shared objective of all champions, France, Finland, is and of the Future of Life Institute, and we'll hear shortly from Max Denmark, is precisely this: ensuring that AI is infused with our human values. And UNESCO's expertise on elaborating the exact meaning of that is invaluable. Max Tegmark, our next speaker, has been a long champion on these issues, and I think brings in almost unparalleled academic expertise in the area, and therefore has been particularly valuable as a partner, an advisor and leader in this area. Max, over to you.
Thank you. The Future of Life Institute is really honored to be a co-champion of the recommendations on AI, along with our partners from the governments of France, Finland, and also UNESCO and UN Global Pulse. And as a professor doing AI research at MIT, as you said, I feel very fortunate to be part of the research community that's developing tomorrow's AI. And it's really clear to me that AI will eventually become our most powerful technology ever. And there's great excitement and eagerness in our tech community to develop AI for good. But there's also a great fear that the power of the AI that we're developing is growing faster than the wisdom with which we manage it. And in particular, there's a craving for United Nations global leadership and coordination to avoid problems and to ensure that artificial intelligence will help all of humanity flourish. And this is why we at FLI are so grateful that the Secretary General and the UN are spearheading AI governance. And this roadmap is very timely because global action is urgently needed to make the common themes found in numerous sets of AI principles across the globe happen, right? Including the Asilmar AI principles, make these a reality. And this means drawing a clear red line between acceptable and unacceptable uses of artificial intelligence. For example, leading AI researchers strongly believe that life and death decisions should not be delegated to machines, period. In other words, the idea that any use of lethal force has to be under meaningful human control, that has to be enshrined in laws and norms by the global community. Now, to lead these efforts of the United Nations, we applaud the future appointment of an envoy for technology. We're thrilled that this envoy is going to provide sort of a first port of call for the world's civil society organizations to the UN ecosystem on tech issues. This is really awesome. And we also strongly support establishing a multi-stakeholder advisory body on AI. We believe that this advisory body is going to complement, not replace, other existing governance forums, since frankly, we all know that there's currently zero effective forums that are truly global. And we also support, of course, the participation of otherwise underrepresented voices in the discussion about governing AI through this advisory body. And this body will also identify best practices in an international governance in terms of challenges related to AI. So we also support, of course, and endorse this vision at the heart of what we're talking about here today, that the universal goals of governance should be to make AI trustworthy, human rights-based, safe, sustainable, and peace-promoting. And I want to emphasize that these themes are intertwined and interdependent. So you can't cherry pick and just have one of them without the other. For example, AI will not be trustworthy if it doesn't promote peace. AI can't be safe if it's not human rights based, and so on. So in conclusion, the COVID pandemic has reminded us all that our societies are not as resilient as they should be. And the pandemic has reminded us that our world has become just so interconnected that we need global cooperation to succeed. And I feel that this initiative is a crucial step in precisely this direction for AI, and we wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Max, and thank you so much for being part of this effort and for all you've done to bring the academic community together on this. And we look forward in continuing this journey together. We now have a number of people who want to comment on the subject. And I will hand over to my colleague Yu Ping to facilitate the next round. We're very lucky to have, I think the first speaker is the distinguished representative of Egypt, Ambassador Mohammed Idris, and we're glad for many reasons that he's joining us. One, because he's one of the most insightful ambassadors here in New York, but also because I know he was meant to speak on the day of the launch on Thursday, but we had all sorts of difficulties connecting. So sadly, it didn't work out, but we're very grateful that you can join us now, Ambassador Idris. Over to you.
Good morning. Thank you very much, dear Fabricio. Happily to join you today, thanks to the enabling technology, digital technology. So thank you very much. And really, through you, our great appreciation to the SG for launching the roadmap for digital cooperation, and our welcoming and appreciation to the distinguished speakers, the ministers from Singapore, Finland, France, and the DG of UNESCO, and the president of the Future for Life Institute. Of course, this topic is really, you always to be pleased to engage in such discussion because it's a journey to the future. And really, this opens new horizons and also new challenges. And no doubt that the roadmap launched by the SG emphasizes and works in the vein of the need to close the digital divide and to grow human and institutional capacity in the digital age, and to set a new global architecture for digital cooperation. And I'd like to indicate that the new technologies are already having a major impact on the world. That impact is both positive and negative, and we need, of course, to maximize the positive side, and so we need, so we can reduce the inequalities that might take place. No need to mention that the extraordinary times we are passing through requires extraordinary measures, and due to the cross-border nature of digital technologies, international cooperation is more important than ever. Digital technologies are also crucial to the roadmap to the future of the UN and the world, the 2030 Agenda, SDGs. So it definitely is an enabled instrument to achieve these goals. And during this decade of action, we have an opportunity now to address how we can continue the momentum and use the lessons learned during the COVID-19 crisis to leverage technology for good, especially for accelerating progress on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I would like to refer that, to highlight that concurrent advances in information technology, infrastructure, and mobile computing power in many developing countries have raised hopes that artificial technology might help to address challenges unique to the field of global health and accelerate achievement of the health-related sustainable development goals. And rapidly developing fields such as AI and blockchain hold great potential to improve well-being and generate innovative solutions for global challenges. No need to mention, of course, that the artificial intelligence can limit the spread of the virus and can enhance the health solutions for humanity, and as well to improve the health care and the food security. And to conclude, I want to say that we must make full use of these life-saving and life-enhancing capacities as the world strives to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And I end by really recording what some of our speakers mentioned, that we need human technology, we need trustworthy technology, and no doubt that AI is going to be one of the most powerful tools and technologies in the future. And the question and the challenge is, this powerful technology is going to be for us, with us, or otherwise. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We are so honored to have you speaking with us today. Our next discussant in the roundtable will be Her Excellency Makiko Yamada, the Vice Minister for International Affairs, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications of Japan. Minister Yamada, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for giving me the chance to talk in this very important session. And so, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you great.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, and so artificial intelligence is prevailing into every corner of the economy and society, and becoming the heart of digital transformation. In the response to COVID-19 pandemic and in the course of economic recovery, the great potential for AI is being demonstrated. Japan has recognized its tremendous potential impact at an early stage and made a proposal to start an international discussion on AI principles at G7 ICT Ministers meeting in 2016, and took the lead in the following discussions at G7, G20, and OECD and more. As the roadmap on digital cooperation describes, AI discussions need to gain inclusive global participation so that AI may be able to contribute to advancing SDGs and to realizing inclusive digital society. At the same time, the discussion should be facilitated in a multidisciplinary manner and with a multi-stakeholder approach. With the objective of promoting AI discussions toward strengthening global digital cooperation, I would like to emphasize that human centricity should continuously serve as the basis of the discussion, taking into account the strong commitment made by so many countries and stakeholders in previous discussions. Building upon this, the further discussions on AI need to aim to explore the way how human beings can use this powerful technology appropriately and can maximize its benefits, but should not be aimed at limiting and restricting its use in a top-down approach. Last but not least, I would like to echo the importance of universal connectivity here. To tackle this huge challenge in front of us, Japan is preparing, in collaboration with the ITU, a new initiative to approach improvement of connectivity in developing countries. Japan believes we could make substantial contribution to implementing the roadmap by UN Secretary General to strengthening global digital cooperation and to advancing inclusive digital society. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Minister Yamada. Our next speaker and discussant on the Artificial Intelligence Roundtable is His Excellency Mr. Matteo Fattinati, Member of Parliament, as well as Special Advisor to the Minister of Technological Innovation and Digitization of Italy. Mr. Fattinati, please.
Buongiorno e grazie. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the Secretary General Fabrizio hosted, and thank you all distinguished colleagues for this opportunity to join the discussion about the near future of artificial intelligence. The way we are approaching AI today will define the world we live in tomorrow. The choices we are facing today are related to the fundamental ethical issues about the impact of AI on the society. AI will produce social and economic changes far deeper than any other technological revolution in human history. It is transforming our world. Moreover, the growth in computing power, availability of the data, and the progress in algorithms have turned AI into one of the most strategic technologies of the 21st century. Though AI will bring major benefit to our society and economy, concerns also arise. If our aim is to introduce the AI across the world, we need the people to not only trust AI, but also benefit from its use in their personal and professional lives. The Italian government therefore truly embrace the European approach that places people at the center of the development of AI. It's a human-centric vision and encourages the use of this powerful technology to help solve the biggest challenge of the world. European strategies based on the three pillars: boost the economic and industrial capacity and the AI uptake across the economy. It means economy. Prepare for such economic changes. It means leaving no one behind. Ensure an appropriate and ethical legal framework based on the key principles, ethic by design, according to which ethical principles are embedded in AI products and services. Italy has been at the forefront in recognizing the importance of protecting and defending human rights on the Internet with the Bill of Rights in 2015 and taking part in an IGF initiative from the beginning in 2006. The climate of a 10-year-long process of debate that included a commission of multi-stakeholder experts and a public consultation. Italy is going to set out a strategy on AI, emphasizing the need of collaboration among multi-stakeholders in order to strengthen AI production for Italian industries and the AI adoption in the digital economy, exploiting the potential of the data economy. Yeah.
If I could ask you to round up soon, please.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, just to conclude, all crises produce a huge shift, a sort of way of new issues, new threats, even as they uncover new opportunities for growth and development. Whatever we drawn out or surf this wave is just up to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fantinati, and especially for your patience and understanding as we have a number of speakers to get through. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Ms. Rebecca Finlay, who is the Vice President of Engagement and Public Policy at the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, CIFAR. Ms. Finlay, please. And again, if I could ask you to try and stick to 2 minutes of time, as Mr. Fantinati so graciously did as well. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's an honor to join this impressive group of leaders today, and we are very proud to be a new constituent in the Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation. Deployed responsibly, AI-enabled technologies will enhance the health and well-being of all people worldwide. However, as the roadmap states, we must ensure that the deployment of AI is trustworthy, human rights-based, safe and sustainable, and promotes peace. CIFAR is a Canadian-based global research organization that convenes extraordinary minds to address important questions facing science and humanity. We were founded on the belief that only by bringing together diverse perspectives from across disciplines, institutions, sectors, and borders is the world able to answer complex scientific questions and solve profound global problems. Today, we are probably most well known for our early investment in artificial intelligence research, which was acknowledged last year when 3 CIFAR fellows, Geoffrey Hinton, Joshua Bengio, and Jan LeCun, were awarded the Turing Prize. CIFAR leads the Government of Canada's Pan-Canadian AI strategy, the world's first national AI strategy, and looks forward to supporting the global partnership on AI. Deploying what we know about what makes societies successful will be foundational to sustaining today's global efforts in AI to respond to COVID-19 and other global challenges. This is the opportunity for this roadmap and the multi-stakeholder effort that supports it. Together, we can address some of the most important questions before us. In partnership with Canada, the UK, and France, we have held international working groups on topics such as Indigenous protocol and AI, democracy and AI-powered information ecosystems, sustainability, and the regulation of AI-driven defense and security technologies. In late March, we convened experts to come together specifically on AI and COVID-19, and followed this up with an extra report on the social and technical issues associated with novel technologies in a pandemic. But our work is just beginning. Multi-stakeholder consultation and engagement are as critical today as they were when CIFAR was founded, and perhaps more so. We must find new ways to work together to harness technology's opportunities while mitigating its threats, particularly in a world facing this pandemic, the climate crisis, and long-standing systemic inequity. I'd like to thank the champions for the Roundtable on AI and the Undersecretary General and his team for their leadership. We look forward to supporting and participating in future multi-stakeholder consultations to move the roadmap forward. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Rebecca. The next speaker is Mr. Yi Zheng, the Director of the Research Center for AI Ethics and Safety from the Beijing Academy of AI. Yi Zheng, please.
So can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, good. It's an honor to join the venture and the establishment of the great roadmap in here. So I would like to tell a very short story that when I was personally involved in the UNESCO AI ethics ad hoc group for developing the recommendation of AI ethics. But actually, when we were talking about living in harmony, I was thinking this is very non-Western value, and people like it. And then people say that, oh, this is very deeply rooted in African philosophy. I was thinking living in harmony was in China, Japan, and Korea. So you see that when you have the idea, actually, people do share a lot of understanding. So this is why we need to link all the AI ethical principles together to actually to avoid the misunderstanding and to make the bridge for the East-West efforts, I would say. During the roadmap that when you mentioned that more than 160 proposals worldwide, and then we don't really have a platform to link them together. I think this is something that really essential to link them together. So this is why at Beijing Academy of AI, we were doing a project called Linking AI Principles to support this kind of idea. When talking about AI for SDG, well, it can be positively used and also negatively used to promote relevant areas. For example, it's not really everything related to healthcare is really sustainable, but when you are having privacy concerns for contact tracing apps, well, in this case, this kind of trying is not really sustainable. So this is why I feel this is also really essential to push the idea for AI for SDG, not only to have the positive side, but also would like to have an eye, as always, to on the negative side. So this is why at Beijing Academy of AI, we proposed the idea for AI for SDG think tank to share all the efforts worldwide, make it freely used to everyone, and actually to bridge all the efforts together. In a summary, that I would like to say, as a nonprofit research organization located in Beijing and supported by the Beijing government and the National Ministry of Science and Technology, we would promote all the ideas at the roadmap, the digital cooperation, as a hub for the efforts in China, and also as an international city. Beijing would like to contribute all what we can do to promote the idea from the digital cooperation roadmap to connect to all of you to contribute to the world to make it better. Thank you.
谢谢. Thank you, Yi-Zeng. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Cyrus Hodge, the chair of the AI Initiative at the Future Society. Cyrus, please.
Thank you, and thanks, Fabricio, for the work that you and your team are leading on digital cooperation. As constituents of recommendation 1B on digital public goods and 3C on AI, the AI Initiative of the Future Society would like to underline the ever-increasing necessity for the global cooperation which you are fostering in the digital space. We are convinced that complex issues such as climate change or the current pandemic can get solved better and faster through data sharing mechanisms and the subsequent application of AI. We are grateful for citing in the roadmap the work that we are conducting together with Pulse, McKinsey, and over 100 international partners, access frameworks, which is an important cornerstone on sharing data globally and using AI and analytics to help get closer to the Sustainable Development Goals. And thanking here to the UAE and Minister Omar Al-Ulama in particular, who helped launch this exercise at the World Government Summit in 2019. Finally, we are co-leading with Stanford High in partnership with UNESCO, and thanks here to Her Excellency Audrey Azoulay, in coordination with WHO and Global Pulse, the Kayak Project, which stands for Collective and Augmented Intelligence Against COVID-19. This top-down sense-making platform will help decision makers, starting with UN agencies dealing with the pandemic, to better coordinate the fight against COVID-19 by building on existing data lakes and using AI, NLP, and computer vision in particular for holistic, efficient response to the health, economic, and social implication of this crisis. We will officially be launching Kayak at the UN High-Level Political Forum in July. And in the spirit of digital cooperation for both these projects, Kayak and GDAF, we are calling on all interested parties to come join us. Thank you, and looking forward to advancing the implementation of the high-level panel's recommendation with the office and with international partners.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. Our last discussant under artificial intelligence will be Ms. Irene Soleiman, who is a policy researcher at OpenAI. Irene, please, over to you.
Thank you, Yuping, and thank you to Fabrizio and the high-level panel for your continual hard work. I also need to thank all the champions and key constituents with whom I worked on Recommendation 3C, as it was not only an honor to work with you, but I really enjoyed and learned from our discussions. As Yuping said, I'm Irene. I'm a policy researcher at OpenAI, and I'll first tell you a little bit about OpenAI. We are an AI research and deployment company based in San Francisco, and our mission is to develop transformative artificial intelligence and ensure it benefits all of humanity. That mission takes 3 streams of work: technical research and development, safety research, and policy work. But all 3 of those really go hand in hand, similarly to the 3 challenges described for AI in the roadmap. Inclusiveness, coordination, and technical expertise must overlap. Underrepresented groups and states must be taken into account both in global governance and in technical development and deployment. We support this as part of our mission to benefit all of humanity, and we also support technically informed AI governance. Global coordination is stronger together, and policy bodies must invest in technical capacity to better adapt to AI's fast-moving advancements. Personally, coming from a technical policy team, I believe that continuously updated technical expertise helps inform adaptable AI policy. And I've seen technical knowledge in the UN put to practice. For example, with the Global Pulses work and also with the ITU, ever since the AI for Good report's conception, I have looked forward to those releases every single year. As those reports track AI work by entity, I encourage similarly tracking progress in AI towards SDGs. I'm really excited to see this roadmap implemented, and I'm looking forward to the UN's work addressing these challenges. Thank you, Yuping.
Thank you so much, Irene. Back to our USG, Mr. Hoshil, for the next roundtable.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank all those who intervened for their insights and for the commitment to continue forward together on this journey. We will really need your continued sustained effort and focus to translate the aspirations and recommendations of the roadmap into a reality. We come to our next focus area of today's discussion, which is global digital cooperation. And we've seen, I think Professor Tegmark made the point that the development of technology and its application has far outstripped the wisdom and institutions to make sure that it's kept safe and benefits as many people as possible. And perhaps one sign of that pacing discrepancy is a proliferation of governance mechanisms. It's not that there is a void of governance. On the contrary, there are many governance mechanisms. The point is, though, the challenge is, though, that they're often not entirely effective, they're fragmented, they don't necessarily talk to each other, and they're not always inclusive. They tend to represent a narrow group of stakeholders or have a fairly narrow geographic base. So, of course, the aim is not to reinvent the wheel. The aim is to see how we can do better with what we have in terms of governance. And many have already spoken up in terms of strengthening the IGF, the Internet Governance Forum, the body that came almost 15 years ago out of the WSIS summit in Tunisia. And it was set up explicitly as a body not so much to exercise internet governance. That was never the point. The point was to talk about internet governance. But I think 15 years on, there is a realization that it needs to be further strengthened, that building on what's already achieved, it has to be given a little more impact in the real world. And that can start with a more focused agenda. It can also mean having a ministerial or a high-level track, bringing in parliamentarians, which was an element we had last year in Berlin. And it can also mean having stronger links with its national and regional and sub-regional offshoots. And it can also mean having policy recommendations as an outcome. so that's one of the areas where the Secretary General's roadmap proposes the strengthening of governance. And then, of course, there is also the proposal that many have already spoken favorably for, of the appointment of a tech envoy to help guide this discussion forward. For the issue of global cooperation, we've had two extraordinary champions, the UAE and Germany, and we're very lucky to introduce this topic today to have the Minister of State for AI, and if I'm not mistaken, that is the first, the UAE is the first country in the world to appoint a minister with responsibility for this area. I'm sure others will follow. And then we also, His Excellency Omar bin Sultan Al Olama, and then we also have the head of Internet Governance and International Digital Dialogue of Germany, Rudolf Griedel. So with that, let me hand over to His Excellency Omar bin Sultan Al Olama for the first intervention. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fabrizio. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Thank you, Fabrizio. I'd like to start by thanking His Excellency António Guterres for this much-needed initiative and extend my thanks to you, Fabrizio, for your integral and inclusive approach over the last 3 years. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be participating with friends and colleagues from around the world. If anything, this shows the importance of digital cooperation for all governments. The UAE has been a strong proponent of the Secretary General's high-level panel on digital cooperation, and we are honored that our Minister of Cabinet Affairs in the future served as a panel member. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues, we are currently at an inflection point. We've seen what 2025 looks like with our feet planted in 2020. And now we're presented with a question. Do we like the future that we're moving towards, or do we want to modify it? The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to the fore the inherent cracks in our system, making apparent the increasing inequalities that our past actions have produced. These actions are neither sustainable nor resilient. It has also presented us with a silver lining, obliging us to future-proof all of our next steps to ensure that what is to come is both agile and sustainable. Much like the Gutenberg press of the 15th century, that brought knowledge to 95% of the population that had no access to the wisdom locked within books, creating an entire new wave of jobs, industries, and the like. It has also intensified pre-existing notions and disparities of inequality. And today, while the world was contemplating whether to use one platform or the other, and which is better for communication, millions of people were still thinking of how to put food on the table. Digital cooperation is not just about cooperation. Its prerequisite is digital accessibility and inclusiveness. The haves and have-nots of the future will transform to the impacting and the impacted of global society. We are here today writing history, not for us in our respective societies alone, but for the entire 7.8 billion people on this planet and for generations to come. And our imperative today is that we ask ourselves 3 key questions. The first is, how can digital cooperation help us design a better future? We in the UAE are fortunate enough to be working under a visionary leader, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who has worked relentlessly over the past decade to transform the UAE into a country that is in competition with no one but itself, continuously working to disrupt inwards in every step it takes. Today, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, 100% of our government services and education for our young ones were delivered virtually online and were delivered seamlessly. The investments of 20 years ago are being reaped today under conditions no one could have foreseen. My second question is, how can we share our collective best practices to the less fortunate, the countries that are not able to navigate the unrelenting waves of change and transformation? As Steve Jobs has once said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect them looking back. With the benefit of hindsight, the wealth of accumulated experience that we together have gathered over the past, we can lift the less fortunate in ways that were not possible only a handful of years ago. And thus, I encourage you all to join me in thinking, not how, but what can we all do to expedite this human experience? Finally, and most importantly, how can digital cooperation ensure that all corners of the earth come out of this pandemic stronger, better prepared, and more hopeful? We are given the tools, we have the motivation, and time is on our side. Until we overcome this pandemic, we will continue to have the space to ask bigger questions, experiment on bigger fields, and ultimately raise the bar. The UAE is honored and delighted to serve as a co-chair with Germany and the Executive Office of the Secretary General's office, on the recommendations on global digital cooperation, recommendations 5A and 5B. Since November 2019, we have worked with our co-chairs to encourage broader participation, bringing in the public and the private sector voices to consider what action can be taken to work together faster to address the growing need for cooperation in the age of digital interdependence. The panel report lays out 3 potential models for the international community to decide on, which are the Internet Governance Forum, the Distributed Co-Governance Architecture, and the Digital Commons Architecture. These are non-mutually exclusive. We have listened closely to all segments of society and have heard strong support for the UN as a key convener. We have also heard support for multilateral and multi-stakeholder models of cooperation that are inclusive of all countries, with efforts to bring developing countries on board that are keen and agile. There has been great interest as well to enhance the Internet Governance Forum to meet our needs. The growing interest has also been there on decentralized options that use the model that works at the logical and infrastructure layers to solve challenges at the economic and social layer. We are seeing a global call for decentralization and inventive ways to put forward guardrails for all people to benefit from digital technologies. I'd like to mention here that we are proposing in the UAE to put together with every country and with the United Nations a repository for digital systems. If we do create something that is going to help elevate our governments, why not share it with the world to ensure that we do not have haves and have-nots in the future, but that we are all haves and that we are all impacting rather than being impacted. This is just the beginning of our journey to the future, and we join the Secretary General in his call for action. It will be up to all of us to take this forward. On behalf of the government and the people of the United Arab Emirates, we wholeheartedly support the United Nations efforts on bringing the international community together for a better future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and let me thank you for the UAE's initiative in originally ensuring the setting up of the high-level panel on digital cooperation and your steadfast support on this agenda and inspiration to us, and we look forward to continuing that journey together. Thank you so much. And now let me hand the floor to Mr. Rudolf Gredel of Germany.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Under Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, distinguished guests. Also on behalf of the German government, I would like to thank the United Nations for the trust that you set into us, for having us together with our dear colleagues from the UAE as the champions, co-champions for this recommendation 5AB, which is in our view one of the very important questions that arise when we think about how can we as a world community work together in tackling the challenges of the digital world that lays ahead of us and that has been so clearly set to us from the COVID-19 disease. We had a large variety of events and written comments from all the stakeholders, from all the regions, and throughout at least 7 or 8 months, we have had consultations together with the African Union, with the UN ECLAC of Latin America, with the EuroDIG, the European IGF. We had a consultations in the margins of the Freedom Online Coalition meeting. We were at the first physical and the last physical MARC meeting that took place this year in Geneva in February. And we had a number of written comments, over 30 written comments from academia, from member states of the United Nations, from civil society. And finally, we did mandate Mission Publique to have a people's dialogue during these last 10 days. And we are now putting together the results, and we are very grateful that what we have been doing and are still continuing to do is so well interlinked with the roadmap that has been presented by the Secretary General last week. Actually, the results that we have gathered are very well reflected in the roadmap, but now we have enough material to dig a little bit deeper into the subject and to try to work out in a hopefully very concrete manner options to the Secretary General in order to build up an entire system of internet governance that will be based on the Internet Governance Forum that we do have, because that has been the clear message from all stakeholders from all over the world, that we have this very well functioning IGF that needs to be the basis, but it needs to be, as you said, Mr. Undersecretary General, it needs to be developed for and needs to be fit for the future. So we are trying to bring together this IGF class together with elements, as His Excellency just said, from the other models, because that has also been something that we heard. Don't stick to one model, try to incorporate elements of the other models into the IGF plus, and I think we will be able to do so. There have been calls specifically from the Global South that on these governance issues, and you mentioned it at the beginning, there are so many things going on. There are so many strands within the UN, outside of the UN. For many, it is very difficult to keep up pace, to have an oversight of what's going on, and that creates a feeling of not being empowered, of not being part of the system. And that is something we need to tackle in this new IGF structure, where everyone can come together and everything will come together. Another element that has been very strong was we need to keep the bottom-up approach as we have it now alive in the future IGF system. There have been no calls for the transformation of the IGF into a formal decision-making body. That has been something that we have not seen. On the contrary, many people say it needs to stay as open and as inclusive as it is, and multi-stakeholder based. So we are now on the basis of the roadmap, on the basis of what we have gathered throughout our consultations and in a written format, on an options paper to be presented together with our dear friends and colleagues from the UAE and from your team, Under Secretary General, to the SG, and we hope that we will be able to bring the discussion forward, to have good options for the SG, and then at a future stage to get to solutions that everyone can live with, and that will bring internet governance on the stage that we need in this 21st century. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rudolf, and we're very grateful to Germany and UAE for leading this initiative and the very thorough work you're doing. And we look forward to incorporating your findings as we move forward. Let me now hand back to Yu Ping, my colleague, who will facilitate the next section. Thank you.
Thank you so much, USG. Our first speaker in the discussants list is His Excellency Mr. Bakhtiyor Ibragimov, the Permanent Representative to the United Nations of Uzbekistan. Ambassador, are you on the line?
Yep.
Ambassador? Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to commend all organizers for convening today's high-level meeting on advancing digital cooperation among governments, the private sector, civil society, international organizations, academia, the technical community, and other relevant stakeholders. I would like also to thank all high-level panelists for the informative presentation. Madam Chair, in the contemporary world, digital technologies make a significant contribution to the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Over the past few days, in a series of meetings and webinars, various recommendations and ideas pertaining to the practical implementation of the Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation have been put forward by the UN member states and expert community. Therefore, today I would like also briefly share with you Uzbekistan's experience in developing digital cooperation in our country. For the last 3 years, the government has designated the development of the digital economy, science, and education as the key pillars of reform in Uzbekistan. 2020 was declared by the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, as a year of development of science, education, and the digital economy. We understand that the development of the digital economy and the digital governance are the most important steps in augmenting countries' attractiveness for foreign investment and in developing various sectors of economy. In accordance with the strategy of action in 5 priority areas of the development of Uzbekistan for the period of 2017-2021, in April this year, a special presidential decree on measures for wide-scale implementation of the digital economy and e-government was signed, which aimed to ensure further advancement of digital economy and e-governance in all walks of life. The decree outlined measures to be adopted for accelerated formation of the digital economy and increase of its share in the GDP by 2-fold by 2023. The development of digital entrepreneurship was another issue covered in the decree. The document provides the government will stimulate the production of software and technological products. The volume of such services is expected to increase 3 times by 2023 and bring exports of digital products by $100 million. The decree also envisages the development of e-government system and bringing the share of its electronic public services up to 60% by 2023. All in all, in Uzbekistan, we fully support the notion that digital cooperation is one of the important drivers of country's development, and therefore we stand ready to work closely with UN member states and other stakeholders on expanding digital cooperation and bringing Secretary General's vision to fruition. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Our next speaker is Ambassador Thomas Schneider, Director of International Relations for the Swiss Federal Office of Communications. Ambassador Schneider, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead, Ambassador.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. Undersecretary General, Excellencies, colleagues, and friends. As our President, Mrs. Simonetta Sommaruga, expressed during the launch of the roadmap last week, the corona crisis has worked in many ways like a magnifying glass. The crisis has also acted as an accelerator for digitalization, and we know that technology in itself is neutral. Whether its effects are good or bad depend on the intentions of the people using it. Good intentions open up many opportunities to achieve the UN sustainable goals, but unfortunately there are also other intentions, for example, to gain power and control over people, to manipulate them through mis and disinformation and other activities. In our view, what is paramount is that digitization must be put at the service of all people. Therefore, all people from all over the world need to have a voice in shaping digital cooperation and governance. So what do we need to do today? has been mentioned. 15 years ago at the World Summit on the Information Society, we agreed to create a space for dialogue among all stakeholders with the UN Internet Governance Forum, a platform for inclusive dialogue which is open to everybody. Today, such a dialogue is still necessary, but no longer sufficient. We need to go one step further and develop a space where we, and by we, I mean all stakeholders in their respective roles and responsibilities, can develop shared rules together. Last year's recommendations of the high-level panel on digital cooperation have been an important milestone. And the UN Secretary General's roadmap, as being presented these days, offers an important next step towards a more inclusive digital cooperation and governance. Given that it is easier to build on existing mechanisms rather than to agree on creating something new, we are convinced that the model Internet Governance Forum Plus will have the best chance to bring us to the next step ahead. In this sense, we warmly welcome the excellent measures included in the roadmap oriented to strengthen and develop the ecosystem of digital cooperation and governance in the spirit of the IGF Plus model. We stand ready to assist the UN and the future tech envoy together with the whole community worldwide in order to transform the IGF into a more inclusive and effective instrument of global digital cooperation. Let me finish by saying that Switzerland, who has significantly contributed in substance as well as in resources into this work since WSIS, is fully committed to continue to work with all of you, and also International Geneva with its many organizations and institutions that are already actively shaping digital governance and cooperation shall make an important contribution to this through helping to better connect all experts and non-experts from all fields across the institutional silos. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Schneider. Our next speaker is Mr. Andrew Wilson, the Permanent Observer of the International Chamber of Commerce to the United Nations.
Thank you. And just to begin, on behalf of the International Chamber of Commerce, the institutional representative of 45 million businesses across the world, I'd just like to start by thanking the Secretary General and, of course, his executive office for their commitment to advancing this agenda. And I have to say, if this agenda was important at the outset of 2020, the world as we see it now with the coronavirus crisis has made it all the more important and vital. And clearly, as we look at some of the root causes of the crisis we face today and some of the fissures it's exposed in the global economy, we ultimately see four fundamental fragilities in our economic systems that will need to be addressed if we are to build back better. There's our economic exclusion, social inequality, nature loss, and of course, climate change. And to really ensure a resilient rebuild, to really address those fundamental fragilities, digital cooperation and digital technologies will have to be leveraged at every possible moment. And we really do think that digital cooperation has to be paramount and foundational to any future rebuild agenda. And for us, ultimately, that means getting the fundamentals right, which is why this section of the discussion is, from our perspective, so very, very important. It's clear, and I'm delighted to hear some of the previous panelists emphasize this, that the internet and digital technologies really do require multi-stakeholder approaches if we're to ensure effective cooperation and if we're to leverage the full potential of technologies we see being deployed throughout our network from companies big and small. For us, that means inclusive governance frameworks, bottom-up structures, and above all, transparency in terms of governance and policy making. I just want to finish by emphasizing our very, very clear support on behalf of the global business community for the IGF Plus model, which is put forward very, very cogently in the Secretary General's roadmap. It's very, very clear that the IGF has enormous strengths and is valued incredibly highly by the global business community. And those strengths and that contribution to the dialogue about digital cooperation need to be enhanced. As a constituent of the Secretary General's Roundtable on Recommendation 5A/B, it'll come as no surprise that we fully support the idea of raising the profile of the IGF, but also improving the dissemination of IGF outputs. How do we get greater knowledge of the fantastic work that the IGF does on the ground by people making decisions, whether that's business, governments, or civil society. We also would fully support the idea of streamlining the IGF's agenda to focus on core critical issues. And the final thing we'd like to see is greater collaboration and greater synergy between the work of the IGF and other relevant bodies. I hope that's helpful by way of an initial reaction to the report, but let me just say this. On behalf of ICC, the companies within our global network, you can count on our full support to ensure effective governance models are developed through the roadmap. And thank you again for the tremendous work you've done today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Our next speaker is Mr. James Roscoe, the Deputy Permanent Representative of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Many thanks,
James, please.
Yes, thanks very much, Yuping. And can I just start by extending my congratulations to Fabrizio and the whole team for the work on the roadmap and for chairing this marathon series of events to mark the launch. I think they've provided a real opportunity to begin to explore the actions that are set out by the Secretary General. And it's just been great to hear the thoughtful and engaged contributions from so many speakers, both last week and today. I think, when we look at this subject, it's just increasingly clear that improving cooperation on digital issues is really critical. And it's absolutely clear that that can't be just intergovernmental cooperation. We need to support frameworks that build cooperation between all of the stakeholders involved here. And as I said in the discussion last week, the UK is a strong supporter of the Internet Governance Forum, and the IGF plays, we think, a unique role as a bottom-up multi-stakeholder platform, but anchored in the United Nations. So during the working group discussions, we were really pleased to see such widespread commitment to strengthening the IGF, and it was great to hear it again just there from Andrew with respect to the business community. We think the IGF has a strong mandate, and we think it does really good work, but we need to make sure it continues to be fit to tackle the challenges ahead, so the challenges of the next 15 years, not the last 15 years. So we fully support the steps set out by the Secretary General, and we're ready to play our part. And we really hope we can harness the energy of this moment to take that action. One of the steps that we've taken is the UK donated over $300,000 to the IGF Trust Fund in order to transform the IGF's website, because I think COVID-19 has shown us how important online access is. And we want the new website to allow more people in more places to be able to benefit from the work of the IGF, and also to critically give them access and new tools for participation. The great strength of the IGF is that it brings stakeholders from different communities together to forge the kinds of partnerships and dialogue that we need to achieve greater digital cooperation. So we look forward to working with all of those stakeholders to build an IGF Plus and to use that to improve digital cooperation across all communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. Our next speaker is Ms. Ellen Blacker, the chair of the ICT Policy Committee for the U.S. Council for International Business. Ms. Ellen Blacker, Ellen, you have the floor.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Great. I don't know if you can see me also, but I'll jump in. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ms. Chair and all the co-collaborators here today. My name is Ellen Blackler, and I work for the Walt Disney Company. But today I'm speaking on behalf of the U.S. Council for International Business, a U.S. industry association comprised of 300 U.S. business members. We have actively provided inputs into this process at every stage and have been enthusiastic participants in the IGF for the past 14 years. We truly appreciate the inclusive approach of the Secretary General's office in conducting these dialogues. We want to echo the statements that have been made on the importance of leveraging digital tools to accelerate progress, particularly for underserved groups. We applaud the Secretary General for recognizing the importance of a multi-stakeholder framework for the consideration of internet governance and digital economy issues. We believe a multi-stakeholder model continues to be the best method to enable whole-of-society solutions which avoid unintended consequences and are grounded in democratic values and principles of transparency, accountability, and consensus. Similarly, we are very pleased that the UN is ready to serve as a platform for such dialogue on issues regarding to emerging technologies, and the introduction of a multi-stakeholder digital inclusion coalition with its focus on data-driven solutions. We welcome the appointment of a technology envoy, which can play an important role in supporting the SG's goal of encouraging a more coherent, strategic approach to emerging technologies. The role will be most effective if it too is grounded in principles of multi-stakeholder dialogue and transparency. We agree that, as the report said, there is a momentum in support of the IGF Plus model, and it is our view that the IGF Plus model will best foster digital global cooperation. We urge consideration of our recommendation regarding IGF funding that would professionalize the function, allow partnerships with philanthropic organizations, enable charitable contributions of any size, and provide the necessary budget transparency. Finally, the stakeholder community needs to thoughtfully explore how to address the call for actionable outcomes at the IGF. Over the last 2 years, we've seen innovations in this regard, which combined with the envisioned cooperation accelerator and the policy incubator functions provide a substantive starting point for further evolution. We look forward to continued discussions on how we can make the IGF Plus, as outlined on paper, a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Our next speaker is Ms. Butina Gormazi, the Director of Digital Development at the World Bank. Ms. Gormazi, Butina? Possibly a connection problem. We'll come back to the World Bank a little later. One more chance for Ms. Butina. I don't hear a response. Let's move on to our next speaker, and hopefully we'll be able to reconnect with the World Bank. Our next speaker then is Ms. Simonetta Di Poppo, Director of the UN Office on Outer Space Affairs. Simonetta, please.
Oh, can you hear me?
Simonetta? Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much for the floor, and thank you very much for this wonderful and very interesting afternoon, at least afternoon for us here in Vienna. I would like to commend the effort that has been devoted to the Secretary General Roadmap for Digital Cooperation. The implications of the digital age to global interdependence, the economy, and our way of life are already enormous and will be even more evident in the coming years. Working together is the only means to ensure that this will be an era of prosperity, equality, justice, responsibility, and sustainability. Why it is important that we join forces? With rapid progress comes a great deal of responsibility and a range of changes and challenges. On one end, availability and accessibility, and on the other hand, safety, security, and legality. As a space professional, I can draw many parallels between digital technologies and the space sector. Space is also a game changer. We use satellites every day without even thinking sometimes about it. Climate action, disaster risk reduction, business and trade, transportation and travel, food and water security, all benefit from space infrastructure. And satellite constellations, unbounded by the limitations of ground infrastructure, are the future of global affordable internet connectivity. But as I said before, all these great benefits come with a range of responsibilities from a political, legal, scientific, and technological perspective. And yet, the space community has been successful in broadening access to space and in creating and enabling transparent and well-governed industry. While much work remains on the table, through cooperation and an understanding of mutual benefits of integrated efforts, we are making space safe, secure, and sustainable. This is exactly the pathway we must envision in the digital world, making digitalization inclusive while improving its governance. We collectively must make sure that digital cooperation is at the heart of all humanity future endeavors, just like we have seen throughout the space age. Well, working together, and then I'm closing, is at the core of creating the future we want. With this in mind, we don't have to forget that cooperation is not about how far we get, but who we can help to get there with us. And so I believe that we together at the UN, we can really strive to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simonetta. We are now trying to reconnect Ms. Fatina Gormati from the World Bank. I think we have her now. The World Bank, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Very good. Thank you so much. On behalf of the World Bank, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the UN Secretary General and Fabrizio's team in particular for the great follow-up to the high-level report. The multi-stakeholder working groups on the report's recommendation have been extremely helpful in aligning perspectives, in building consensus, while crowdsourcing a lot of ideas. The report illustrates that really very well. Now that the way ahead has been nicely articulated, we're really looking forward to supporting the next steps. As you know, the World Bank has been involved in many of these groups, including on global connectivity, the group on digital public goods, on digital ID in particular, digital inclusion, cybersecurity and trust, and digital cooperation. We believe that connectivity and digital technologies can help achieve the SDGs as well as the World Bank twin goals. Our digital development agenda for developing countries aims at achieving inclusive and trustworthy digital transformation through foundational elements such as broadband connectivity, digital financial services, digital public platforms, skills, and through use cases in priority sectors such as education, health, agriculture, etc. Our entire institution is fully mobilized around digital transformation, including through the use of all of our financial instruments and our analytical support. As you know, IDA 19 commitments include strong components on digital transformation and digital inclusion, and our next World Development Report will be dedicated to data-driven development. So all the nice topics that have been really dealt with in this incredible work of the UN. COVID-19 crisis has shown the importance of digital to disseminate public health information, to track the virus, to offer telemedicine, and to help business continuity in this new normal. So the report is extremely timely, as it reminds us that we have very ambitious agenda that digital can actually help us achieve. It's no longer an afterthought, and it's really a magnifying glass, and I think, as one of the speakers have mentioned earlier. It's really nice to see a broad understanding that fast-tracking digital cooperation is the way to go to ensure a successful digitization for the whole world and for the society at large. We're very happy to be collaborating with a large number of partners, the UN, ITU, very specifically, UNESCO, UNICEF, to really get to a world where digital can be seen as a key component of digital and economic development. As for the global digital cooperation architecture, the bank is very supportive, of course, for a multi-stakeholder initiative that can build consensus around digital inclusion agenda, and that technology agenda can include the voices from the private sector and from developing countries. We're very interested to see how...
Tina, if I could ask for 1 or 2 more sentences.
Yes,
we're running out of time. Thank you.
That helps the digital community. That is a very exciting journey that we're proudly part of. Thank you all, and really looking forward for walking the talk together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fatina. Much appreciated. Our next speaker, and if I could remind all remaining to also try and keep their remarks short and concise as far as possible as we need to move on, is Mr. António Arcidiacono, Director of Technology and Innovation at the European Broadcasting Union. Antonio, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. As EBU and WU, we support the IGF Plus model because we believe that the digital world is too important to leave it only for government decisions. Civil society, industry, academia, technical community, and media that we represent need to be all involved and associated on equal footing in the decision-making process about our common digital future. We see a central role for UN Secretary General in this future architecture. Yes, to use IGF Plus as its think tank for instructing process and the annual event as the place where to validate possible solution to the problems posed by digitization of the world and its activities. International agencies need to be closely associated to the process on a permanent basis, but even more when the problem analysis is specific to their specific domain of action. Reading the UN report on digital cooperation, it is urgent to find a solution to reach 100% of the population and provide them with information and education contents. Nobody can be left alone. The gap in terms of connected citizens, 87% in the developed world, 19% in the least developed countries, is huge. The role of media and their infrastructures, these being terrestrial and satellite-based, has been and will be key to reach 100% of the population. Broadcast services reach today almost 100% of the world population, and by using broadcast and multicast technologies combined with internet connectivity, it is possible today to drastically accelerate the penetration of essential services while at the same time guaranteeing their economical sustainability. The technical solution where broadcast and telecommunication technologies are jointly orchestrated has been imagined already in the conception of the 5G infrastructures. Now it is time to implement this orchestration to accelerate the availability of services at a cost sustainable even in developing countries. The media industry is actively working in this direction through the 5G Media Action Group, where key industry players at global level are combining telecommunication and broadcast technologies. And the IGF Plus could be the UN forum where this vision can be accelerated to the advantage of every citizen. Again, thank you for the opportunity, and if anybody is interested in the text, I will have it also available for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Antonio. Our next speaker is Mr. Raul Ichamberia, who has had a long history of work on these issues and is an international consultant also working with ISOC Uruguay. Raul, please.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, congratulations to the Secretary General Guterres for his leadership on this issue, and to the UN Under Secretary General Hochschild and his team for all the great work they have done with this roadmap. This is undoubtedly one step forward in the right direction in a process that have started many years ago. Also, congratulations to the champions on recommendations 5A and 5B, Germany and United Arab Emirates, for the specific work on this area. The roadmap includes very useful and valuable recommendations on the future of digital cooperation architectures. There is a broad consensus in working toward the improvement of IGF, or what has been called the IGF Plus, but also capturing some of the ideas included in the other two models proposed by the high-level panel on digital cooperation. That is something that I agree very much with. There are very interesting ideas and concepts in those other two models too. More focused agenda, the production of outcomes, a better integration with the intersectional work, the inclusion of a high-level segment are all welcomed recommendations. And in fact, some of them are recommendations that are also aligned with some of the improvements we are discussing at the regional level in Latin America and the Caribbean in order to improve our regional digital cooperation ecosystem. The decision to hold IGF 2020 fully online gives us a huge opportunity to experiment with some new ideas and also to work hard to have a different IGF in 2021. We will have more time to include some of those recommendations that are included in the report. This is one of priority to work on the concrete improvements of IGF, and I'm very optimistic we will succeed on that under the leadership of the current chair of the IGF, Henriette Esterhuizen. As the Secretary General says in the report, consultations on digital architecture will continue in the near future. There is still a lot to do. And one of the most important things we have to address is how to make the different pieces of the ecosystem to coordinate much better. I have promoted the concept of chain values, what could imply to see the ecosystem as a series of chains dealing with different topics from different perspectives. It is important that each mechanism, forum, and bodies understand what are the chain values they participate in, and what is the value they add to the chain, what are their objectives, and what are the other organizations and forums they have to relate to. This is imperative in order to have a successful ecosystem and increase the impact of the multi-stakeholder global discussion in the policy making. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Raul. To close out this session, before we move to the next, our last speaker, and he promises to be very brief, is Mr. Nigel Hickson, representing the Internet Society. Nigel, please.
Yes, and Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'll indeed be very brief. Like others, I'd like to, on behalf of ISOC, congratulate the Under-Secretary General and the whole of his team for this excellent roadmap. We also like to congratulate the UAE and Germany as the co-champions for this, for the work that they've put into this process, and we very much look forward to the options paper that's being considered. We also took part in the mission public consultation last week and found that very valuable. ISOC, as Andrew Sullivan, our CEO, spoke last week, which we're grateful for, supported the IGF Plus model. We think that is the way forward, but we also think there are a number of improvements, as others of course said, in the road ahead. And it should be remembered, not least, that the IGF, of course, is not just an annual occasion. It's an intersessional concept. It has lots of activities going on throughout the year, and it is represented by national and regional initiatives in over 100 countries. And that has to be taken into account in the process going forward to improve what the IGF does as a truly multi-stakeholder process. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you. I think those were very helpful comments on the architecture of digital cooperation. We now move on to the question of a global declaration on digital trust and security. You know, I think I've mentioned that there's a proliferation of governance mechanisms, unconnected or loosely connected, some and fragmented. I think when it comes to common undertakings and the articulation of common principles, we witness something similar. There are many proliferation of such declarations. But what is lacking is one that is all-embracing, that is cross-cutting, and that is universal. Where declarations exist, they tend to be either very specific on specific areas of focus of a community, or they lack universality. So if we are to move forward, if we're to avoid a fragmentation of the internet, of digital technologies in ways that would undermine their true value as something that can better connect the world, better serve the world, better serve the sustainable development goals, then we need the articulation of common cross-cutting principles that will uphold trust and trustworthiness, that will uphold security in the broad sense of that word. And it's with that in mind that the roadmap proposes the articulation at a high level, at a senior political level, of a series of principles for enhancing globally digital trust and security. We've been fortunate in the discussion of this to have a number of extraordinary champions, including the tech ambassador of the Netherlands, Timo Costa, Estonia and Uruguay. And I'd like to begin by giving the floor to them and to other speakers. So let me start with Ambassador Timo Costa, who has been a great force in this area. Timo, over to you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Good. Oh, sorry. I immediately dropped the camera. All right, cool. Good.
Come in.
First of all, dear Fabrizio, congratulations on a remarkable achievement, not just on this particular recommendation that we have worked on together so successfully, but also the other ingredients of a truly impressive roadmap. So I would like to start with commending you and your team and thanking you for all the hard work that's gone into this, the way you have rallied us as champions and guided us really, I believe, in a direction that will find a lot of support at the UNGA and beyond that. So in terms of substance, I think we have all witnessed how digital technologies have changed our lives over the past decades, and new technologies have created new methods to socialize, educate, make payments, and advocate human rights. And joint efforts in providing affordable and universal access to the internet will bridge the digital divide and allow for online education across the world. Extra attention, we believe, should be given to close the gender gap by including women and girls in education. Human rights should be at the center of any development of new technologies and applicable legislation. So over the past year, the Netherlands, together with our co-champions Uruguay, Estonia, UNODA, and Microsoft, have been strongly committed to finding effective ways to improve digital trust and security and promote equal opportunity so we can all reap the benefits of new technologies. In so doing, achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I think the three themes of the roadmap, connect, protect, and respect, are well chosen and do also apply to building digital trust and security. Connect, empower all stakeholders to take part in the global debate on our common digital future. Digital interdependence has created both opportunities and challenges unique to each state. International cooperation and multi-stakeholder dialogue is needed to establish the rules of the road in cyberspace, agree how to implement and enforce those rules, and how to make sure that all will be part of that digital community of tomorrow. The Netherlands acknowledges the UN's leading role in advancing and coordinating this inclusive dialogue. Second theme, protect. Digital technologies serve people and have the task to provide equal opportunity to all. New technologies and internet infrastructure are predominantly developed, operated, and managed by the private sector. Digital technologies are the backbones of today's society as they support and control critical infrastructure that provides water, energy, and healthcare, for example. It is therefore key that states in particular show restraint, abstain from malicious cyber operations, either direct or through proxies, and that we enable all countries to develop the resilience to protect themselves. And thirdly, respect. We should highlight the efforts of digital trust and security at heads of state and government level. Pursuing a shared vision on digital trust and security should be done through a high-level political statement that reflects buy-in at heads of state and government level. This should set us up for a UN-led project on digital trust and security in the year to come, and to foster an approach to development and use of ICT and other technologies which are safe and secure, and in which the fundamental rights of each individual around the world are protected. I think it's of the utmost importance that we remain ambitious. We need to continue the work in a spirit of multilateralism and multi-stakeholderism so that we can deliver a safer and more inclusive digital world. The Netherlands remains committed to this process, and we hope to continue to work closely with you, Fabrizio, and your team to make sure that we successfully implement this roadmap. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much, Timo. Thank you for your steady support and encouraging words. I now give the floor to His Excellency, the Ambassador of Uruguay, Carlos Amorim.
Yes, thank you very much, Fabrizio. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to express my special gratitude to you and all your team for the great effort you made in these 2 years, especially in the last semester. And obviously, with your contribution of your team too on the discussion on digital cooperation that has had much to do with the very good end of the last Thursday presentation of the roadmap by the Secretary General. Really, we welcome this presentation of the roadmap, which is the culmination of 2 years effort by the Secretary General, the experts, and in the final period of the informal groups and round tables with the participation of member states, representatives of the private sector, academia, and civil society. This roadmap, we consider, is not the end of the world for us in digital cooperation, but it's a shifting point towards the fulfillment of the objectives and goals that should be reached in the UN in the coming years in the framework of the 2030 Agenda. In this understanding, together with the other champions of digital trust and security, Netherlands and Estonia, we propose that the specific goal on this matter should be included in the declaration of 75th anniversary of the General Assembly. Its inclusion in the declaration should give the necessary impulse in the work of the UN in the matter for the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals. The importance of the digital tools has been reflected in how we work and overcome the difficult challenge of COVID-19 pandemic. We are together today because of digital tools and cooperation are functioning. Our governance, international organization, and the day-to-day life in our countries, including health, social issues, and education institutions, continues to function because we have these digital tools and we practice a digital cooperation worldwide. This reality reinforces the need for having a strong and active protagonism in the UN on leading the digital cooperation as a democratic place integrated for the vast majority of members of the international community. In concrete terms, we must translate the principles set up in the roadmap in specific and universal mandates to face with the variety of cyber attacks of criminal origin that threat the health, education, and police institutions at the national and international level. We should look forward to international binding engagement that include member states, but also allow the participation of other stakeholders. We must advance in the discussion and approvals of North in order to seek advance and reform the international law applies in the use of ICT, North of responsibility states, behavior, and related capacity building efforts, as well as the establishment of regular international dialogue in the issue. I want to try to cut out my intervention a little bit. To this end, we need a complementary work of all the different efforts in the UN system are developing today, and mainly what we can signal one, the use of ICT and international security, working under the auspices of the First Committee of the General Assembly. Having in consideration all the current initiatives and processes within the UN, it will be important for international community also prioritize broader issue of trust and security to reap up the benefit of the digital domain in collective efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. as the roadmap says, a universal statement endorsed by member states in which elements of common understanding are set out could help the shape of a shared vision for digital cooperation based on core values. The digital technology that underpin core societal functions often refer to a critical infrastructure, including supporting access to food, water, housing, energy, healthcare, and transportation need to be safeguarded. We consider that 75 G8 will be the ideal opportunity for adopting concrete decisions on this direction. Well, in this context, also, we obviously, in trust and security, we need to guide by objectives and principles. We, in our group, with the other champions, we agree in some goals and objectives and principles, but let me just, in order to end, remember a couple of things. That we consider that these objectives we frame in some principles that are vital for us. That digital technology must be developed to advance the sustainable development goals and deploy in a manner that narrow the digital divide and promote social and economic progress for all. And I suppose I would agree totally with other champions that the human rights and fundamental freedom should be protected online. We must ensure that rights and freedom protected offline should be also protected online as well. We must respect the rights of individual internet users in a way that is consistent with international human rights law, including by promoting protections, privacy, and personal data, as well as access to information and freedom of expression in both public and private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you for your leadership in this area. I'd now like to give the floor to our third champion, the Estonia, and we have the Deputy Permanent Representative of Estonia, Madam Anneli Vades, with us.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much, the Secretary General, for organizing this extremely interesting journey through all the different work streams and work of the roundtables that has been happening throughout the past months, even despite of the lockdowns. And please also let me to start with congratulating the Secretary General and of course Mr. Hoxha, your team for finalizing of the roadmap for digital cooperation. We strongly believe global coordination for digital cooperation and capacity building is urgent, and the multi-stakeholder approach taken by the Secretary General is the only possible way to move forward. We are very grateful for the opportunity to be part of the process, and particularly since the end of the 2019 as one of the 5 champions of the high-level panel recommendation for digital trust and security. And trust and security in the digital space are not novel concepts. However, sometimes mistakenly considered as something limited to the first committee discussions only. Trust and security are preconditions, actually, thus enablers for our digital functioning, both individual as well as societal level. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown how much our societies depend on stability of cyberspace, meaning trust and security have become even more relevant than ever. The lockdowns increased the usage of and our reliance on the internet and the services it enables. Thanks to our interconnected world, many of us have been able to continue with our education and daily work tasks. However, pandemic has also brought out vulnerabilities and increased the digital divides. So when Estonia joined, one of our goals was to identify those gaps and divides and discuss how to address the vulnerabilities, keeping the coordination, capacity building, the protection of human rights online in the focus. And as our contribution to the process, Estonia carried out the mapping studies in order to learn about the expectations of the recommendation for constituents on the outcome of this process. And the study we conducted had actually three main findings. First, a more comprehensive overview of the existing initiatives could enhance the understanding on these initiatives and contribute to achieving their full potential. Second, more coordination between the existing initiatives could lead to a more efficient multi-stakeholder cooperation towards digital trust and security. And third, links between digital trust and the SDGs could be further explored. So the responses to the mapping study highlighted that this recommendation is a necessary step toward a more secure and confident digital environment. The roundtable reflected the need to design and promote a shared global narrative for a more stable digital development. The roundtable also noted a high number of existing relevant and universal frameworks, as well as principles that could be promoted by the process of this recommendation. And building on these initiatives, we would be able to contribute to achieving several of the specific SDGs, if not all. So there was a strong consensus among the champions and the whole constituency that in order to close gaps and narrow divides, we need to focus on capacity building based on the existing initiatives. We would encourage to build the future activities now upon them and elaborate a shared global narrative towards digital trust and security. And therefore, we believe that it would be useful to move forward with multi-stakeholder approach to trust and security, taking into account existing initiatives and working towards a shared and universal vision, which could help us to close the digital divides. And let me finalize with a more general note. COVID-19 has created an extraordinary momentum for global digital leap. We should maintain the existing dynamics and advance in the light of this readiness for a change. In order to continue supporting Secretary General's efforts to accelerate the capacity building processes and close the digital divides, keeping up with Agenda 2030 ambition, Estonia, together with Singapore, will convene a high-level conference on 1st of July on the topic of closing the digital divides, digital response to COVID-19. The international video conference on the level of foreign ministers in all of its would aim to stress the importance of digital transformation in all of its aspects. Our intention is to call on all interested countries to join the conference on ministerial level. We will be looking forward to seeing you there. So thank you very much, Mr. Hochschild, fellow champions, and the members of the constituency and all other colleagues and friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and we're deeply grateful to Estonia, as also to the Netherlands and Uruguay for their leadership in this area. We have three more high-level speakers before we go to the discussants, and I'm afraid I haven't been very good at keeping time. So, if I could, plead with you to try and be relatively concise in your remarks. So, first is my good friend and very admired colleague, the Undersecretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Izumi Nakamitsu. Izumi, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, Fabrizio, it's really heartening to see this roadmap is out. Congratulations, Ambassador Kosma, Ambassador Amorim, and fellow panelists. As a member of the UN Secretariat, I will also echo sincere thanks of the Secretary General and Under Secretary General Hochschild for those member states of the United Nations that have come around and really engaged in depth and accompanied the making of this roadmap and now also joining forces to support the implementation. I have been really impressed by the engagement of member states, but also private sector, civil society and academia, every step of the way in this process indeed, from the development of the report of the Secretary General's high-level panel on digital cooperation, and now, of course, the issuance of the roadmap. Now, the impact of technology on our life and society is obviously twofold. On one hand, technological innovation provides with us overwhelming benefits. On the other hand, the potential for the misuse of technologies of increasing concern. And as the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, I am particularly concerned with the use of technologies as it impacts peace and security. So it's the second aspect. In 2015, a nascent normative framework was accepted by the General Assembly on the use of information and communication technologies, or ICTs, in the context of international security. This nascent framework includes that international law applies in the use of ICTs and consists of voluntary, binding norms on responsible state behavior and practical measures for confidence building and capacity building. This framework, which guides actions of the international community, is now being further developed and built upon through two processes within the United Nations. Obviously, the open-ended working group and a new group of governmental experts. And I would say in other platforms, the impact of technology on international peace and security is further looked into. I just left the meeting of the Secretary General's Advisory Board on Disarmament Matters a few minutes ago. And this session of the board's discussions also looking into impact of technology, including digital technology, and how that might impact a need for a new vision for arms control and disarmament. So although it is, of course, vital safeguarding the digital space is not only about international security, I am fully aware of that. Digital technologies increasingly impact every aspect of our lives, and therefore making cyberspace more secure is also about safeguarding human rights, promoting safety, human security, and sustainable development. The message of a secure and safer cyberspace in every aspect, and that is the benefit and responsibility of all of us, needs to continue to grow and reverberate. I would therefore like to really take this opportunity to highlight the proposal to develop a universal statement in support of digital trust and security in the Secretary General's roadmap. Such a statement would reinforce our common commitments in partnership with all to work together to implement a shared vision for digital cooperation based on global values and fulfill to the Sustainable Development Goals. If there is one lesson to be learned from the current COVID-19 crisis, it is that more than ever, we need to take concerted, coordinated, multi-stakeholder action. We can only beat the pandemic, and we can only effectively ensure a safe and secure digital realm if we do so collectively by implementing our commitments, building mutual trust, and raising each other's capacities. And I think this development of a statement will definitely help us in that direction. Thank you very much, Fabrizio. Again, congratulations, and we stand ready to work with you fully.
Well, thank you so much, Izumi, also for your insightful remarks. I'd now like to give the floor to our other champion, Microsoft, and we're very lucky to have the Kate O'Sullivan, the General Manager of Digital Diplomacy for Microsoft. Kate, over to you.
Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, partners, and friends, I'm grateful to be here with you today and honored to have been able to represent Microsoft throughout the Roundtable Dialogue as a co-champion for digital trust and security, contributing to this landmark report. The Secretary General's Roadmap for Digital Cooperation is a historic achievement and a giant step forward for multilateralism and multi-stakeholderism writ large. It is this type of cooperation and diplomacy that will best serve us all as the foundation for taking forward the recommendations of the report and advancing a digital world that is inclusive, secure, and respectful of international law. The Secretary General's roadmap marks an important shift for the world. With it, we have a roadmap to work collaboratively to steer technology towards positive outcomes. Together, we can imagine and implement a better, a more peaceful world where digital cooperation and multi-stakeholderism set the expectations for the peaceful use of technology. Indeed, it was remarkable throughout the roadmap launch last week to observe just how much consensus there was across member states and among and across all other stakeholders about the challenges we face and the opportunities we must seize. Under Secretary General Hochschild perhaps summed this up best when he noted that it would have been difficult to differentiate any one speaker from another based solely on the content of their remarks. And the significance of that should not go unnoticed. Leaders from across geographic and political communities, leaders from across all stakeholder groups, we are united in recognition of the challenges and opportunities, and in that we all must work together to harness technology for the good of humankind. Digital technology can, and indeed it must, play a positive and responsible role in advancing human rights and in achieving each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in the United Nations 2030 Agenda. However, this will only be possible with a secure and stable online world that allows us to all share in its benefits. And this is especially true for the estimated 4 billion people, half the world's population, who will be connecting to the internet for the first time in the coming years, and who stand to gain the most from increased access to technology during this time of digital transformation. All of these opportunities and the promises of a more connected world, however, are jeopardized by current trends. Cyber conflict is an issue we cannot ignore. Cyber conflict is on the rise with precipitous year-over-year increases in the most sophisticated cyber attacks. This results in serious risks for individuals and organizations of all sizes, with spillover effects that can negatively impact entire communities and populations. It also leads to increasingly serious threats to peace and security. This is an issue which we can no longer drag our feet in addressing comprehensively, as the dangers of inaction continue to mount. We do not need to look far to see the dangerous impact of cyber attacks. As the world confronts the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic, our frontline healthcare personnel and healthcare infrastructure systems have had to face another scourge, cyber attacks. News outlets have reported recent criminal and likely nation-state attacks targeting Brno University Hospital in the Czech Republic, Paris's hospital system, the computer systems of Spain's hospitals, hospitals in Thailand, medical clinics in the United States, healthcare agencies in the United States, and of special relevance to today's audience, even international bodies such as the World Health Organization. These cyber attacks put the most vulnerable amongst us at risk of peril. As the roadmap notes, civilian hospitals and critical healthcare infrastructure have to be inviolable, not only in times of armed conflict, but at all times. We are grateful for the tireless work of the International Committee of the Red Cross for their leadership on this issue. And thankfully, we have seen growing consensus about the need to outlaw these types of attacks. We have seen government statements from a great many governments highlighting how cyber attacks on healthcare systems transgress international commitments. We have seen over 100 international legal scholars come together in the Oxford Declaration, detailing how attacks violate international law. We have seen many of the world's most notable humanitarians join the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Cyber Peace Institute to call for the protection of the healthcare sector from cyber attacks. But let's also be clear, the dangers presented by cyber conflict go well beyond the threats during this current pandemic. They go beyond threats to specific organizations, sectors, or even nations. We heard repeatedly in the statements last week just how fundamental digital technology will be to achieving each of the Sustainable Development Goals. If we cannot improve digital trust and security, we will jeopardize our ability to move this global shared agenda, this roadmap forward, and we will thus severely limit our shared imperative for prosperity and dignity for all. All of us convened here today represent stewards of the digital domain and have a role to play in protecting it. And now we must pivot to action. And again, in the words of Undersecretary General Hochschild, we must unite in purpose. The time to act and to set meaningful expectations for normative behavior is now. We look with hope and anticipation to the potential of the ongoing United Nations Open-Ended Working Group and the group of governmental experts on responsible state behavior online to continue to advance negotiations, to continue to identify and commit to norms, and to continue to clarify expectations. In full support of both of these dialogues, we also hope that the 75th United Nations General Assembly this September will provide an opportunity for member states to highlight and publicly declare this issue, peace and security online and the need for cooperation, as central to the core mission of the United Nations itself in this digital age. Such a political commitment would invigorate ongoing dialogues and be consistent with the guidance provided in the roadmap that the UN began working towards, and I quote, a universal statement endorsed by member states in which elements of common understanding are set out to shape a shared vision for digital cooperation based on core values. The digital technologies that underpin core societal functions, often referred to as critical infrastructure, including supporting access to food, water, housing, energy, and care and transportation, need to be safeguarded, end quote. This is the kind of commitments nations everywhere should be willing to stand behind, and stakeholders of all stripes should be able to applaud and support in word and deed today and tomorrow for as long as it takes. Microsoft stands ready to continue to support these efforts alongside other members of industry to provide guidance, share expertise and experience, as well as support capacity building and the implementation of norms and expectations so that all nations and all peoples may leverage a reliable, secure, and safe online world and pursue shared prosperity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kate, and we really appreciate the very close cooperation with Microsoft and your inspiring words. Finally, we're going to hear from Adrian Lovett, the President and CEO of the World Wide Web Foundation. Adrian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the chance to join this very timely discussion. We all know that digital technologies and the web are today embedded at the heart of our societies. It's how we talk to each other, how we learn about the world, we bank, we shop, and increasingly how we access government services and even vote. And with COVID-19, we've turned to the web like never before. So if digitization is to continue to play such a central role in our world, two things are absolutely clear. Firstly, these technologies must be available for everyone, everywhere. And secondly, they must be safe and trusted. A safe and empowering web is our destination, and the excellent digital roadmap for digital cooperation will help us get there. So I'd like to suggest briefly 4 areas where action is needed and which might, Fabrizio, inform perhaps the declaration being considered today. Firstly, as we build a digital world that is secure, safe, and empowering, we mustn't forget that half the world can't access the web at all. And I'd like to echo the words of Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the founder of the Web Foundation, and of course the inventor of the World Wide Web, who said with you, Fabrizio, last week at the launch of the roadmap, our #1 focus must be to close the digital divide. We need to do that quickly. We have a UN Sustainable Development Goal to connect everyone in the world by this year. We have a target of the UN Broadband Commission to ensure 3/4 of the world's people are connected by 2025. We're currently set to fail on both those targets. And this at a time when we now know more than ever in this global pandemic that access to the web is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. It should be seen as hardly less fundamental a need than clean water or basic education. And we need to be ambitious, going beyond basic access to embrace the notion of meaningful connectivity so that people have the data speeds and the devices that they need to use the full power of the web. As the members of the Alliance for Affordable Internet have said, a coalition that we proudly host and lead here at the Web Foundation, we can no longer see digital access as simply off or on. Without meaningful connectivity, the true value of the web, one with trust and security at its heart, will remain out of reach. Secondly, safety and trust requires action for specific vulnerable groups. Access, getting online, as we've said, is half the battle, but getting online is not enough. We want people to connect not just to any web, but to a safe and healthy and secure one. And there are some specific risks for too many people at the moment to that. One of the biggest threats is the rising tide of online violence and abuse. Women bear the brunt of this, and women of color in particular. The Web Foundation survey found that 52% of young women and girls had experienced online abuse. The Web Foundation is now working with women's rights organizations and major tech platforms to build innovative policy and product solutions to tackle this problem. It's also vital that governments and companies recognize the special status of children in the digital world. Children must be protected online, just as they should be in the real world. I've been proud to work on this as a member of the UN Broadband Commission, and I'm glad that in the next session, I think this will be addressed when you hear from the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children. And as Kate O'Sullivan just highlighted from Microsoft, sophisticated cyber attacks threaten our most important national infrastructure, from energy grids and communications networks through to our basic democratic processes. And I was proud to join that call from Microsoft and others for governments to protect the healthcare sector from attacks that threaten the hospitals fighting to keep people alive during this pandemic. My third point is this: in building a digital world where trust and security are paramount, we need to avoid the sense of a false choice between the effective use of data and the necessary safeguards to protect privacy. And there can be no better example of this than the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic that we're all now facing. One of the earliest examples of epidemiology was in 19th century Britain, when there was a widespread belief that diseases like cholera and bubonic plague were caused by polluted air. As a cholera outbreak took hold in central London, it was data that challenged this incorrect theory of transmission, plotting cases and observing that they were clustered around, as it turned out, a water pump in the Soho area of the city, identifying the pump as the source, removing the pump handle and solving the problem. Today, we have the potential to access data in far greater volumes and use it to understand how and where coronavirus is spreading and to develop strategies to tackle it and other great challenges in the world. But many people, given recent experience, are understandably deeply concerned about the idea of volumes of their personal data in the hands of companies and governments. This debate is often framed as a trade-off between privacy and public health. In order to beat the disease and end the crisis, the argument goes, we should accept some exceptional compromises to our privacy. But this binary framing presents, in our view, a false choice. Privacy should always be prioritized when data is collected and used. And effective privacy laws and frameworks are designed to allow for the use of data when essential to public health and in the public interest, while guarding against improper intrusions to our privacy. So we should push back on governments or companies who seek to use COVID-19 as an excuse to collect and use people's data in ways that are inconsistent with human rights and the rule of law. And given that this data exists, let's also make sure that it does more than just serve us ever more targeted online ads. At a moment like this, where our data really can benefit ourselves and others, let's make sure it's as useful as possible while ensuring our privacy remains protected. And my final point, Fabrizio, is this: a safe and empowering web for everyone is our destination. A roadmap for digital cooperation helps us see the routes to getting there. But a roadmap also needs vehicles. And one powerful vehicle we have at our disposal is the Contract for the Web. It was launched by Sir Tim Berners-Lee at last year's Internet Governance Forum, where many of us were gathered in Berlin. And the Contract for the Web lists the high-level principles and the concrete commitments needed by governments, companies, and all of us as citizens to get us to the web we want. Already, 1,300 organizations have endorsed the contract, including tech firms with global reach, businesses at national level in countries around the world, NGOs and activist groups, academics, and many more. And we're now developing ways for endorsers to demonstrate how they're living up to their commitments. We're pushing for governments and companies to showcase their best practices. We want to see governments in a race to the top to develop the best national policies to ensure digital trust and security for all their citizens. We want companies competing to design privacy settings that actually deliver meaningful transparency and control to customers. So we're thrilled that the Contract for the Web has been included in the roadmap as one of the important multi-stakeholder efforts addressing rising threats in the online world. We need all these vehicles to help us get to our destination, a safe and empowering digital world for all the world's people. And we need the convening power of the United Nations and its digital roadmap to help us get there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I am now going to open the floor to our discussants. Our first discussant is Ambassador Mikael Ekman, the Technology Ambassador for Denmark. Mikael, please.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and let me just say, by having participated in a few of these sessions now since Thursday, it's clear to me that you have not only managed to create momentum around the roadmap, but also really facilitated an important discussion around some of the key themes in there. And I think today's session is no exception. So congratulations on that. As we stated during Thursday's launch, we welcome and support the roadmap from Danish side. We're particularly happy with the strong emphasis on digital inclusion and affordable access to the internet, on human rights, and on the multi-stakeholder approach, all very important themes. As regards the theme we are discussing here today, we also welcome the focus on digital trust and security as one of the important pillars of UN work going forward. And we believe this is more important than ever due to at least three reasons. Firstly, over the past months, we faced not only a global pandemic, but also what some experts call a global infodemic. Disinformation and malicious cyber actors have really exploited the COVID-19 crisis, as Kate O'Sullivan rightly pointed out a little while ago. So while emerging technologies in many positive ways have helped us both navigate and connect during the crisis, it has also reinforced the need to be vigilant and counter the increasing level of online threats that we're facing. Secondly, the fundamental nature of the global IT infrastructure is under pressure of fragmentation. Now more than ever, we need to protect and promote a free and open global internet that works to the benefit of all of mankind. And thirdly, going back to the previous session a little earlier this morning, emerging technologies such as AI, IoT, and others bring with it huge opportunities, but certainly also some new risks. And understanding and addressing the impact of these technologies on our digital trust and cybersecurity will be of paramount importance in the years to come. As regards the proposal on a new global commitment, we find that three elements in particular will be important as we take this on. Firstly, in the past years, we have taken important steps towards addressing the threats to citizens of the online world. And it's crucial that any new global commitment on digital trust and security builds on existing results and initiatives to avoid any kind of backtracking. This includes, of course, the 11 voluntary norms of responsible state behavior in cyberspace. An absolute priority must be to address the...
If I could ask you to sum up quite quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And an absolute priority must be to address the immediate threats to an open, neutral, and secure global cyberspace. I believe the 11 norms here will be absolutely crucial. Of course, in this regard, it's also very important we don't duplicate the work of the UNGGE and the open-ended working group. And then lastly, let me just say that, of course, the future of the digital world is not only in the hands of us, the member states, it's very much so also in the hands of the companies. And here, both civil society and the tech industry needs to play a very important role. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. We look forward to continuing to contribute.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, and apologies. We are running a little bit late on time, so if we could ask all speakers to try and be concise. Our next speaker is going to be Ms. Anna Jubin-Brett, the Secretary of the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law and the Director of the International Trade Law Division of the UN Office of Legal Affairs. Ms. Anna Jubin-Brett, please.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and digital collaborators. Let me first echo the sentiments of other speakers in welcoming the thorough and comprehensive roadmap and commend the Undersecretary General and his office in achieving with such agility the mammoth task of responding to the high-level panel's most interesting and thought-provoking report. I'm addressing you as the Secretary of the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, one of the two legal bodies of the General Assembly, and we are busy in the field of international trade law. One of the key focuses of UNCITRAL is the promotion of digital trade through the establishment of harmonized legal texts that support the legal recognition of electronic communications and electronic signatures, accompanying the digital transformation in the law. And in this function, I cannot agree more with the introduction by USG Rothschild regarding the development of common principles. It is the more important as codes of conduct, principles, and standards are being developed in an atomized fashion, and we're currently facing more fragmentation than harmonization. Internationally developed principles in this area are key. In the roadmap, the Secretary General calls for the international community to prioritize broader issues of trust and security to reap the benefits of the digital domain in collective efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. In heeding this call, we must pause to remember that trust is a human state of mind that can be influenced but not replaced by digital technology and needs solid principles to be gained. Principles to promote trust in the digital space have been a focus of ANCITRAL's work in digital trade, where it has been particularly sensitive to the needs of developing countries to actively and safely engage in digital trade and thereby narrowing the digital gap. At present, we are finalizing a legislative instrument on the use and cross-border recognition of digital identity, identity management, and trust services, which builds on earlier work on electronic signatures and electronically transferable records. Among other things, the instrument requires public and private service providers to adhere to standards based on principles of transparency, reliability, and party autonomy, in addition to the ANCITRAL staples of technology neutrality and non-discrimination of electronic means.
Anna?
This is clearly responding to the acknowledgement of the high-level panel that digital technology must enable some new interactions that promotes trust, notably by verifying people's identities and allowing others to rate them. With this, I will pause and assure you of ANCITRAL's full commitment to work together with other stakeholders in the development of principles that are much needed in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna. Our last discussant now is Mr. Daniel Stauffacher, who is the president of the ICT for Peace Foundation. Daniel, please. Daniel? Daniel, are you online? I see him online, but I do not see it. Well, perhaps we can come back to this and we can invite Daniel to give an intervention as we open the floor later. At this point, then, we will go back to USG Fabrizio Horschild, and we will pick up the other areas in the roadmap. USG, please.
Thank you. I think on the, I'd like to thank all the previous speakers for their insights. You know, this is a very large theme, not least because the whole world is being transformed digitally. And it was very difficult for the roadmap to go into all areas in a similar level of depth. I think two themes that we tried to flag, but there are other, but do need further depth on consideration than the roadmap was able to go into. One is the digital impact on the environment. And we know that certain digital technologies, for example, blockchain mining, or even data storage, are incredibly energy intensive, and where the wrong sort of energy is used can have a very negative effect on the environment. But we know also that there are AI digital applications, AI applications that can help in better energy management and thus improve the conditions of our environment. But that is an area that certainly needs a lot more thought, and we're very lucky that the executive director of UNEP, of the United Nations Environment Programme, is with us to talk more on that. And a second topic I just want to flag, and we're very lucky to have Simon Zadek, the co-chair of the Secretary General, the Sherpa, Chief Sherpa, to the co-chair of the Secretary General's task force on this issue, to talk about this. The other area that is absolutely critical is digital finance and the advantages that can bring, but also some of the risks that are apparent. And we're lucky to have Simon to talk to that. But let me first give the floor to my colleague and much admired leader of UNEP, Ms. Inga Anderson, and then we'll go to Simon. So Inga, over to you.
Thank you, Fabricio, and to you and to everyone else. Thank you for this amazing job that everyone has been doing in trying to promote this digital cooperation and understanding and the deepening of our understanding of the way forward. Look, we've just come into this crisis of COVID. No one thought that it was possible, and now we're realizing how very poorly prepared we are for risk. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to tell you that COVID is nothing compared to climate risk. And so it's but a small overture. And so I come to you with 4 key messages. And the first message is, and Fabricio, as you rightly said, there are environmental threats, but there are also very much environmental opportunities that digital technology presents. And we are, as other speakers before me have said, entering the decade of action. And so this is an opportunity that we need to understand as this medium is becoming ever broader. We issue every year at UNEP the emissions gap report. That report that we issued in Madrid at COP25 last year told us that we are totally not on track. If we add up all of the NDCs that countries have come up with, we are, and if they fulfill what they promised in Paris, which is not a given, we will have a 4-degree world. That is not a world we want to arrive at. And so what we made very clear is if we want to arrive at a 1.5-degree world, we need to shave off carbon emission at 7.6% every year. That is equivalent to what we have shaven off during COVID lockdown time. This therefore means that we need to make something very significant shift. So that's on the sort of opportunity side, and we need to then understand the energy load that we're putting onto this, as well as the pollution load in terms of e-waste and circularity that is still not present in the sector. But at the same time, obviously, we also know that this is this medium that can provide tremendous engagement and understanding, whether it's Alipay. We've been working with Alipay and Ant Financial. That led to the Ant Forest app that you may know, that whereby people contribute every time they make a purchase to forest restoration. So there are lots of opportunities here too. But we also want to emphasize that digitizing environmental data can transform the footprint, our environmental footprint, and really shed light. It brings transparency and measure, and companies, municipalities, and countries can more transparently, if we do it right, map their actions and their supply chains and compare and contrast. And we're beginning to see shareholders, as well as the general public, asking companies to be held to account. And this, we think, is quite positive, and we at UNEP are engaging with many companies in this regard on their footprint. E-commerce is a huge thing that we all have taken to know and love right now, but we need to also understand that that has an amazing potential for, obviously, connectivity, but clearly also can really influence the market. I want to mention gaming, because gaming is something that my generation don't really understand, but the younger generation do. And with about 2.5 billion largely younger generation folks on gaming, we have engaged with some of the largest gaming companies, including Microsoft, Ubisoft, Supercell, to insert green nudges into the games, as well as to decarbonize their platforms. So that's the first message. Look, there's good and bad in here, but we can do something. My second message is that if we think about the digital economy, we really can integrate environmental data and insights as a core part of the operating system, rather than this add-on. And I have to give a dig at you, Fabricio, a friendly one. We are not other areas. This is the platform on which we all are. And so it can't be an add-on. So we need to hardwire environmental sustainability, not as the add-on, but as the very platform upon which humanity sits. Without the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, and the clothes we wear, all of which comes largely from nature, we have nothing. So we need to understand that we are endangering our very existence. And so we need to hardwire environmental sustainability into this global operating system, quote unquote, that we are intending to set up. And here technology can really help us around the infrastructure, the standards, the digital algorithms, but we do this with intent, not by accident and not as an add-on thing. But this, as previous speakers have said, demands collaboration between public and private sector. Now, the third message that I have here is that if we harness the power of digitalization for the environment, then we need to understand that it comes with some challenges as well. People have spoken to connecting the unconnected, so I won't go there. People have spoken to the democratization of access, won't go there. But the issue of the citizen and freedom and the increasing privatization of digital public goods are real. We very much understand that the digital economy is essentially in the hands of, if we are honest, 8 companies. And countries are always playing catch up, and the UN is playing catch up. And we are not there because they are so much faster than these bureaucracies can be. So what do we need to do? Is it a new Hippocratic oath? Is it an understanding of how citizens and their governments can set up the guardrails within which business, digital and technology will work? These are areas for the environment world that we live, that we see at UNEP, because there's inappropriate, incomplete, non-factual environmental data that is being put out that we spend our time combating. I heard others speaking on other forms of abuse on the web. This becomes very important at a time when the environmental movement is beginning to come to the fore. And without blowing my horn, I will say that, and that's my fourth message, the environmental movement, including UNEP, have begun to understand how much more we need to offer up and use the digital ecosystem to make the world understand geospatial and environmental data, the infrastructure, the algorithms behind it. We need to have real-time info. People are waiting every time we come out with a new IPCC report or a new IPBES report or a new State of the World Environment report. Each of these need to be much more dynamic, but to do so, countries need to have the ability to upload and to access. And that full digital access is important. So on the digital ecosystem, this is one track we're working on. A second track that we're working on is on the digital transformation. Here, we at UNEP are employing the nudge and shift. So essentially, within apps, with companies, transforming consumption patterns, making people understand that circularity is a good thing, and that production and consumption can be sustainable, and that actions in nature, agriculture can be nature positive. You could do a lot by global mobilization in this way. So that's a digital transformation. And finally, on the governance, it's been spoken about a lot, but the environmentally related digital ecosystem is just not up and running yet. So at UNEP, we're working with all partners towards governance frameworks, towards business models, towards incentives, towards safeguards for public-private partnerships for that global digital collaboration. So what would all of this take? Well, first of all, the fundamentals, which is what we have been discussing all day today: ownership, privacy, inclusion, access, algorithm bias, security. These things are fundamental. It's about mitigating the sector's footprint, e-waste, supply chain, the whole, as well as energy, what you referred to. In the United Nations Environment Assembly, which is the highest level assembly, it is in a sense the General Assembly for Environment. It meets every 2 years, and the next one is scheduled for early next year. At that point, in 2021, we hope and expect that ministers of environment will opine on this exact issue, will opine on the digital transformation and how for environmental sector, actually they can move this towards the progress that we want to see. And in the forum that runs besides the Environmental Assembly, the Science Policy Business Forum, we bring together the business sector, the scientists, as well as ourselves and member states and NGOs, precisely to dialogue on what that platform looks like. We will take much of what we've learned today and much of what is in the strategy that the Secretary General has laid out, and take that with us. And we hope to engage with many partners who have been present today as we move forward. So with that, big congratulations once more, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inge, and for those inspiring words, and also for setting me straight that indeed environment is not another area. It is the area that makes all areas possible. Global partnership to end violence against children, who are a leading organization in this area. So I think first to you, Howard, and then to you, Maria.
Thank you, Fabrizio, and congratulations to you and your team and all the partners who've been involved in preparing the fabulous roadmap. And also a big thanks to the Secretary General for recognizing the specific vulnerabilities of children, which you have just mentioned, as children access and use digital technologies, and particularly the global crisis that we see of online child exploitation and abuse. Last year, nearly 70 million images and videos of child abuse material on online platforms were reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the US alone. Less than 10 years before that, that number was less than 1 million. And as other speakers have observed, some of the risks to children have increased during COVID-19. Many children are now doing more and spending more time online, but also so are the people who wish to harm them. In April alone, there were more than 4 million reports of online child sexual abuse material. That was a 300% increase compared to such material in April last year. We know the internet was not built with children's safety in mind, and right now we are collectively failing children everywhere by not protecting them online. The good news is we have an opportunity to fix that, and the Secretary General's roadmap is, of course, an important step forward in this direction. We work with nearly 500 partners across all sectors. The End Violence Partnership and Fund are uniquely focused on catalyzing and supporting action to end all forms of violence, abuse, and neglect of children, including making children safe online. This year, our Safe Online investment portfolio will reach $50 million invested in nearly 70 countries. We are the only global entity making targeted investments in programs and in cutting-edge technology tools focused on preventing and eliminating online child sexual exploitation and abuse. But it's very clear from the scale and the fast growth of the problem that much more investment and action is needed. Protection of children online is possible, solutions do exist, and it will take us all to get this right. Between us, we can and must raise awareness, invest in digital literacy, promote collaboration across sectors, and invest in the human and the technological capacity which will make children safe online. And as we expand connectivity to everyone across this planet, we must make sure that the expansion principles are informed by child safety by design. Maria, who leads our child online safety work, is now going to briefly share 3 specific examples of exactly what we are doing to support progress to make children safe online. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard, and thank you Fabrizio and Yuping for the opportunity to speak about this critical issue. I will give you 3 concrete examples on how, through digital cooperation, we have been advancing the safety of children online. Number 1, last week we have launched an exciting new partnership with the Technology Coalition, a group of 18 biggest tech companies, including Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, and Twitter. Together, we will be funding research to advance understanding of patterns of online child sexual exploitation and abuse. We will give priority to actionable research that can inform policy and product design within industry, but also across sectors. This is a really concrete answer to SG's call to promote collaboration between the fields and across sectors. Number 2, in Rwanda, we have invested in the development of the child online protection policy. In Kenya, we have supported the establishment of anti-human trafficking and child protection unit within their national police. And also in 10 countries on the African continent, we have funded the establishment of online reporting portals for child online abuse material. These are just small examples of the critical pieces of infrastructure we are building together with capacities at the national and regional level in places that are undergoing rapid digitization. This is a direct response to SG's call for protection, safety, and universal connectivity. We are also working with the Broadband Commission and Giga Alliance to make sure that their work on school connectivity is informed by safety considerations around the most vulnerable people and children. And then lastly, this year, we are investing $13 million in technology tools for child online safety that are shareable, interoperable, and promote greater collaboration between key global players in the ecosystem. And these tools range from machine learning algorithms for identification and classification of child abuse material online to e-safety games and tools that promote safer behaviors of children and adolescents on digital platforms. And this work speaks to the SG's call for investment in digital public goods. And we have been working with UNICEF and the government of Norway to make sure that Digital Public Goods Alliance is promoting principles of safety by design as one of the key principles underpinning the development and design of new digital public goods. We look forward to working with all of you on the implementation of this roadmap and specifically on making sure that children are critical for our digital future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maria and Howard. We're now going to the discussion segment of this program, and the first person I'd like to call on is Miss Antigone Davis, the Global Head of Safety of Facebook. Ms. Davis, please.
Hi, thank you very much for this opportunity, and also just a tremendous congratulations to all of you who've developed this roadmap by having just finished launching something that involves 18-member companies. It is impressive to see such a large group come together with such diverse stakeholders to put together such an incredible initiative. So I'm going to speak very quickly about the partnership that was just discussed a minute ago, and give you a little more information about how technology companies are coming together at this moment in time to fight child exploitation online. I think this is particularly relevant to today's conversation. As Adrian put it, we consider this initiative a vehicle, much like what he just said, a vehicle that feeds into this roadmap. So just very quickly, this initiative involves 18-member companies, including Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Adobe, Yubo, a wide range of companies across the globe that have come together around 5 pillars of work: innovation, research, information and knowledge sharing, transparency and accountability, and probably most important to this call today, collective action. And this initiative will involve a multi-million-dollar fund for research and innovation. We will be partnering with the End Violence Against Children, Global Partnership Against End Violence Against Children, as well as with We Protect Global Alliance. And the goal here is to do this in a coordinated way and then ladder this into work like this roadmap. It is our hope that with this initiative, we can take forward the fight against exploitation of children online and really remove it to the darkest corners of the earth. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Now, next speaker is somebody that we managed to connect now, Daniel Stauffacher from the ICT for Peace Foundation. Daniel, you have the floor, please. Daniel? Daniel? I think he was on the line. I'm not sure why. All right, let's go to the next speaker and then we'll come back to Daniel again. The next speaker that we've actually had inscribed is Thomas Campbell, who is the founder and CEO of Future Grasp. Thomas?
Hello, can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Great, so thank you very much, Yuping, and it's a pleasure to join this distinguished forum. I am Tom Campbell, founder and CEO of Future Grasp, a US-based advisory group comprised of former senior US government leaders, top academic researchers, and successful serial entrepreneurs. We work with the corporate and government leaders to identify and assess emerging tech and their impact on policy and environment and responses, especially regarding critical digital issues such as AI. In 2019, we published under the advisory support of the United Nations Interregional Crime and Justice Research Institute, or UNICRI, the seminal report, Artificial Intelligence, an Overview of State Initiatives. There are now over 50 states with AI national plans in place or in draft form, demonstrating the profound interest in leveraging the capabilities of AI. So as states engage more deeply in both AI research and applications, it is critical that public and private sectors work together so that all income levels benefit. We applaud the publication of the Roadmap for Digital Cooperation toward this end. We must recognize that AI has profound implications across the full breadth of the roadmap, including inclusivity, capacity building, human rights, digital trust, security, stability, and digital cooperation. The challenge now is to propel more effective engagement with the private sector, which is critical to leverage the full promise of AI, such as offering greater economic use of digital goods, and to mitigate the risks, such as unethical applications of facial recognition and digital identification. We need to establish agreed upon principles for such collaboration and issue a call to action to build an accessible framework. Future Grasp stands ready to assist in the UN's efforts to leverage AI toward the achievement of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals within the next decade, and we look forward to working with partners around the world to ensure digital benefits are achieved for all people. Thank you again for allowing me a couple minutes on the floor, and I hand it back to you, Ping.
Thank you so much, Thomas. We're now going to Henriette, who is the chairman of the Internet Governance Forum Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. Henriette, please.
Thanks very much, Yuping, and I'll be very brief. I'm speaking on behalf of the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group of the Internet Governance Forum, and I really want to congratulate the SG, Fabrizio, and the team. The report that you've produced and the roadmap in particular really builds on work that has been done since the WSIS and work that is not easy to undertake. I particularly value that your recommendations and the 8 action areas are substantive, but they also take consideration of process and how important process that's legitimate and inclusive. And I just want to invite you all to be part of the IGF. And we are very pleased and honored that IGF Plus features so strongly in your recommendations. It's testimony of the work that has gone into the IGF since its launch in 2006. We recognize that there's lots more that we can do to be part of this growing effective architecture for digital cooperation. And to invite all of you to participate in IGF 2020, which will be virtual. And the themes of IGF 2020 resonates with remarks that have been made by speakers today. And we're working on 4 themes. The program will be built on these 4 themes, and environment is at the top of the list. The other themes are data, trust, and inclusion. So on that, just again, congratulations. You have the commitment of the IGF and all that's been part of it to contribute to this process. And please come to the IGF this year, take your discussion forward within that framework. You'll get lots of more value input. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and all strength to all who are going to be part of this process going forward.
Thank you so much, Amria. We count on the IGF and yourself as key partners in this endeavor. And so now, again, turning the floor to Daniel from ICT for Peace Foundation. I believe we've finally managed to sort out the technical issues. Daniel, if I can give you the floor, please. I think your microphone doesn't seem to be working. Daniel, we can see you, but we can't hear you. Daniel, we can't hear you. I think there's a microphone. You might want to turn on your microphone. Unfortunately, the vagaries of technology. Perhaps, Daniel, we can see you, but we can't hear. Perhaps we could circulate your statement to all the attendees to make sure that it's on the record and we hear your very important views. We apologize for that. Now we are turning back to Undersecretary General Rashid. Rashid, please.
Thank you. I think today we have to acknowledge we touched on some of the more controversial areas in the roadmap. I think the areas we touched upon on Friday were less controversial than some of the areas we're talking about today. Artificial intelligence and the idea of some sort of platform to exchange experiences, not, as the French minister pointed out, it's not intended in any way as a new normative, norm-setting mechanism, but really to exchange best practices. And then the idea of a global political, senior-level political declaration around trust and security, which in the current international environment is also not without controversy. And of course, the governance mechanism, even if there is a wide level of consensus around the idea of IGF plus or plus plus, if we bring in the idea of not neglecting other models, has support, has a lot of support, but the whole idea of governance is controversial. So these are the more difficult areas that we discussed today. And I think they're difficult for two reasons. One reason which I hope is increasingly becoming superseded by more reasonable recognition of the reality. And that is the idea that innovation and regulation are antithetical, that any form of governance prevents innovation, and that innovation has to be pursued virtually in the digital domain at any cost. I mean, I think it's disputable if we look back on history that regulation that is antithetical to innovation. I don't think anybody would say the introduction, which happened, in fact, during my lifetime, of obligatory seatbelts in cars somehow held up the development of the automobile industry. And it would be a very hard argument to make. So putting in guardrails and safety mechanisms into new technologies, I think is something that has to be done and not antithetical to innovation. But the second point, which is harder to argue against, is that regulation inevitably reflects values. It reflects what any society sees as good or bad. It reflects what societies see as acceptable limitations. And of course, to do that is inherently political. And at this stage, the level of political consensus around these issues at a global level is very evasive and not really there. But I don't think we should let those challenges distract us too much. They're real and they have to be dealt with, and they won't be easy to deal with. But at the same time, we do have to ask ourselves, not just what are the risks of moving forward, but what are the risks of doing nothing? What is the opportunity cost of not trying to develop global frameworks what is the opportunity framework of not, the opportunity cost of not having an articulation, a high-level articulation of global principles. And I think it's fairly easy to see that we will have an ever more fragmented approach to the internet, that we will have ever stronger clashes of values, and that we will have global harms, even in areas where there is a global consensus, like in protecting children on the internet. So in weighing the risks, and the risks are real in moving forward, I feel strongly that we have to weigh them against the risk of doing nothing. And I think as beneficial as this technology is, like all technologies preceding it, it requires global steerage. And it's for our generation to undertake that. And as public policy, people involved with public policy, it would be a renunciation and an abdication of our responsibilities to let the difficulty inhibit us or make us sit there with folded arms. But no doubt it is going to be difficult. And no doubt the only way forward is in this sort of cross stakeholder alliance, cross-regional alliance and cross-stakeholder alliance. And I would share the words of many speakers who've welcomed the consensus there is around some of the ideas in the roadmap. I don't think that's coincidental, because the roadmap was put together with an extraordinary diverse group of stakeholders, extraordinary diverse nationalities, age groups involved. And I think, but the translation of it into a reality, the translation from something aspirational into something that really has impact in the world in terms of maximizing benefits, curtailing harms, is going to be a long, hard road ahead. And we hope very much that we can translate the many words of support we've heard today into continued engagement, into making this roadmap a reality, to ensure that digital technologies better serve the security, better serve the development, better serve the human rights of the current and of future generations. But thank you so much. We look forward to working closely together as we move forward. And thank you all for your support.
Thank you, everybody. And that ends our program for today. Thank you and goodbye. We hope to see you perhaps on Wednesday for a fireside chat. But thank you again for everybody for participating and for staying with us through the program. Goodbye. Thank you.